Good evening, everyone, and happy holidays. I'd like to call the December 14th, 2021 meeting of the Dare County Board of Education to order. We're meeting at Manteo High School, and the time is 5:11. Found policy 2202, election of officers. At the December board meeting, it's customary for the superintendent to preside over the meeting until a board chair is elected. Therefore, I will preside over the meeting of the board until a chairman is elected in just a few moments. Before we go any further, could we give the Manteo High School band another big round of applause? Emma Alter is the director. The band performed last week at the County Commissioners meeting, and she's a first-year teacher from Manteo High School, so she's doing a fantastic job. Also would like to recognize we have two Manteo High School students who are running cameras tonight. Please welcome Helen Farrow and Kyla Munden. At this time, I'd like to request a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Twitty, who will provide the welcome and then lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Dr. Farley. Good evening, everyone. We had a wonderful day on Roanoke Island. We started this morning at 9:45 at Manteo Elementary School. And as we were going through the facility and seeing these young children with their smiling, well, we assumed to smile because they had their mask on, but they had their eyes, you could tell their eyes were really engaged to be back in that building. And when we were going through the pre-K, they were in there putting their envelopes together and writing to Santa Claus. So they're getting their priorities ready for next Saturday. So as we went from there, Manteo Middle School, they were engaging in mathematics in Miss McGee's class. They were learning math that when I graduated here in '88, I had no clue. And they were in 8th grade doing the math that they were doing. They're really, really going. I cannot say enough about the schools that we went through today. When we ended up here at Manteo High School this afternoon, I think Mr. Luciana and his staff, they were going through the ITE program. Is that correct, Mr. Luciana? And seeing what some of the kids are catching up on. Some was on their computer, some was on a Google meeting, some was doing their makeup homework, things like that, and interacting with the teachers. And the custodians through all three of our facilities done an amazing, amazing job. I shared with Ms. Boswell when we were going through Manteo Elementary School, you do not see many facilities like Manteo Elementary being all sheetrock and no handprints, no kicks in the wall, nice and clean. I cannot say enough on our staff, the custodians, keeping our facilities clean. I was able to go through all the cafeteria, the folks in there preparing their meals, working hard, doing the right things for our students and staff to keep them in the building to learn like we need for them to be. And then this evening, what we finished up watching, amazing, Manteo High School's band playing, and like Dr. Farley said, they performed at the County Commissioners meeting last Monday, and they just hit it right off. So with that, thank y'all all. I wish y'all a happy holidays, a safe holidays, and we'll stand and say the pledge.
Next, we will conduct the election for board chairman. I now declare the floor open for nominations for the position of chairman of the Dare County Board of Education.
Dr. Farley, I'd like to nominate Joe Tauber.
Mr. Twitty nominates Mr. Tauber.
I nominate Mary Ellen Balance.
Ms. Bothwell has nominated Ms. Balance. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none, I declare that the nominations are closed. We'll vote on the nominees in the order they were nominated until one person is elected. Mr. Tauber has been nominated for chairman of the Dare County Board of Education. Would all in favor indicate by raising your hand and saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record indicate that Mr. Woody, Mr. Twitty, Mr. Tauber, and Mr. Hester have voted ayes for Mr. Tauber. Would all opposed indicate by raising your hand and saying nay?
Nay.
Let the record show that Ms. Bothwell, Ms. Lawler, and Ms. Balance voted nay. Mr. Tauber, congratulations. You're the new chair of the Dare County Board of Education. I will gladly relinquish the gavel, and Mr. Tauber will lead the nominations for a vice chair.
Members of the board, I now reopen the floor for nominations for the position of vice chair of this board.
I nominate Margaret Lawler.
I nominate David Twitty.
Oh, I got to do something, right? Yeah. Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, I declare the nominations are closed. All those in favor of Margaret Lawler, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, there's 3. All those in favor of Mr. Twitty, please say aye. Aye. The votes are 4-3 for Mr. Huh? Oh, anybody opposed to Mr. Twitty as vice chair? Oh,
That's 4 votes. He's
that's
elected.
correct. Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Woody. You have been elected as vice chair of the Board of Education. Twitty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. While David's moving over here, I would like to thank Mary Ellen Bounce and Margaret Lawler for their service to the board. I would also like to say, as the board chair, I'm going to tell you my leadership style. My leadership style is to basically find what we have in common with each other as opposed to our differences. I think we're much better off as a community if we find out what we have in common as opposed to the differences. There are differences, and we can work those out. But I say the one thing that we have in common is our love of children, and our love of children in the community. Just walking through the schools today, I just saw the smile on those children's faces and how we impact those children. And some of the decisions that we make here are very tough decisions, but it's always with the children in mind, I can tell you that. And as long as we keep that focus on the children, I think we'll be better served. And we're looking for input from the teachers, from the administration, and from the parents and the community in terms of making this one of the best school systems, if not the best school system in the state of North Carolina. So I appreciate your input. Either call or write the board members if you have any issues, and we'll listen, we'll discuss it, and we'll try to make the best decisions again for the children, because that's why we're here. Thank you. Also, just want to add one other thing. We've discussed with Dr. Farley about having town hall meetings, and we've had public comment here, and the public comment has been one-sided, where the public has, for want of another term, sometimes bums, but we'll get over that. But if you have a town hall meeting, you can have a dialogue, and you can ask us questions, and we can give you the answers. We can always agree to disagree, but you're going to hear as to what the reasoning was for that decision. And I think it's important that we hear from you what you have to say, because we can't make this a good school system without everybody's input. So I thank you very much. I'm honored to be the chair of this group, and it's a good group, it's committed, and we're going to work hard. Thank you. All right, following the script, says our first order of business is the approval of the agenda, and the agenda includes recognitions, instructional highlights, public comment, presentation of the 2020-2021 audit report, announcements, approval of the consent agenda, reports and items for information, unfinished business, and several new business items. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion we approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The agenda has been approved. Next on the agenda is recognitions. Dr. Keith Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations, Mr. Chairman, on your election, and to Mr. Twitty as election as Vice Chair. We are very excited tonight because we have two principals that are going to come forward and share some really outstanding recognitions. And we have some very important people and very thoughtful people that are going to join us from the community tonight that have been very generous and thoughtful to our schools. And I'm very excited that the board and our guests tonight will be able to hear from them. I also want to say thank you to our wonderful Manteo schools for hosting the board today, to Manteo Elementary School, Manteo Middle, and Manteo High School. And I also want to particularly thank Manteo High School and Principal Luciano and his staff for working with us and setting up this afternoon. And I also want to thank Aaron for his work in coming out and helping set up as well. So we're thrilled to be here with you. I'd like to start out and ask Manteo Middle School Principal, Miss Tammy Harper, to come forward. And she has got some really exciting things to share and some amazing people to recognize. So, Ms. Harper, thank you for joining us here, and we'll let you start us out with the recognitions.
Good evening, Dr. Farley and Board of Education. Thank you for allowing me to have the floor to make these special recognitions. I would first like to introduce Mr. Finn Gaddy and his wife, Miss Nancy Gaddy. If you would please join me at the podium, please. We would like to thank Mr. Gaddy and Mrs. Gaddy, who represents the Charles and Nancy Finch Gaddy Endowment, for joining us this evening, for their generosity and their desire to improve their local community and particularly our schools. Back in October, Mr. Finn Gaddy reached out to me about doing an essay contest. This was pretty important to him. The contest would be for all grades to run through their English classes. He wanted the topic to be about giving, to kids to really think about things that would make an impact on their lives or on somebody else's, more importantly. So we went with the season of giving. Students would write about something they felt would improve our world. Students chose topics ranging from community support to something that would impact their school now, but also would help students in the future. The essays were evaluated independently by all of our ELA teachers, and they were voted on. The first place winner will receive $4,000 to donate to the project that they wrote about. Second place, $3,000. I must include that initially the amounts were $3,000 and $2,000. However, after I reached out to Mr. Gaddy concerning the winners and their topics, he decided to increase the amount by $1,000. The first place topic was a very thorough argument on the establishment of a butterfly garden to be built at Manteo Middle School. This idea of a butterfly garden was very significant to Mr. Gaddy, which I had no idea. He explained that his mother, Lucy Finch Gaddy, loved butterflies, and in her memory, the family had put a butterfly garden at Peace College. The Gaddy Garden was established in 2009. So this is very significant and important to him, and he was a little bit taken back by that. So with that said, please congratulate with me Ms. Sophie Austin for her first place essay. Would you please join us, Sophie?
Let's bring up the second one, and then we'll bring the Gaddies up with us.
Perfect. The second place essay was also very well written, explaining why the program Room at the End was such a valuable program to our community. If you don't know, Room at the End is a program that organizes shelter and support for our homeless. The executive director of Room at the End is Mr. Michael Jones, if he would join us. He said he was going to try to be here, so, well, we would like to acknowledge him anyway. And if you would help me congratulate Miss Elizabeth Rittenberry for her second place essay win. Do you want just the Gaddies? In the spirit of essay contests, by the way, great job, Sophie and Elizabeth, and we also want to thank again Mr. and Mrs. Gaddy. The MMS also participated along with all of our other schools in the VFW essay contest. I would like to invite Mr. Richard Probst and his wife to come up from VFW Post 10950 to come to the podium to present their awards, please.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Did I tear something up? All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Richard Probst. I'm the Senior Vice Commander of the local VFW post here at 10950. With me tonight is Ellen Aycock. She's the Junior Vice Commander and also the Chairperson of our Patriots Pen and Voice of Democracy Scholarship Contest. Each year, we give the schools the opportunity to let their middle and high school students participate in these programs. We had 33 entries in the Patriots Pen contest, with 19 coming from Manteo Middle School. Those were our top 3 winners. At this point, we had the top 3 winners were all from this school, so we'll be presenting all those awards here. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Ellen, let her elaborate on it and present the awards.
Good evening, I'm Ellen Aycock, and we're here to present the awards for the Patriots Pen essay. And this is for the middle school. And again, Manteo School did a fantastic job with 19 participants out of 33. So at this time, I would like to call Miss Laura Epps. She's one of the teachers, if she could come forward along. Laura had a big piece of this in making this happen this year, so it was very, thank you, Laura, for that, and we'll have you. And then I'd also like to call the following 3 students. Adelaide Grimsley, come on down. Alec Midget. Alec, if you can come down. Hold on, don't do anything yet. And then the last one is Amarai Calvillo. Okay, yeah, right. And so we would like to present the awards now. For third place is Adelaide Grimsley.
$50.
Yep. And that's $50 she gets tonight. And then for second place, for $100 is Alec Midget. All right. And then first place is Amara Calabero for $150. Yes. And here are the certificates to get them. And what do you want to take?
The check, and then if you guys want to join them with the photograph.
Yeah, sure.
We could get
We'll do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it so much. Thank you. Thank you all so much. And again, to our community partners here, thank you so much for those generous donations to our school. And thank you to Manteo Middle School for representing so well in these essay contests. Thank you, Ms. Harper, for helping us organize that tonight. We'd like to now, Mr. Chairman, ask Principal John Luciano and Assistant Principal Sarah Pritchard to come forward, and they're going to share some wonderful recognitions here from Manteo High School. John, thank you.
Good evening. We have a couple of recognitions to some students and staff. The first is Jamie Holton for being named North Carolina Volleyball Coaches Association 2A Player of the Year, and also receiving a full athletic, and probably should be academic, scholarship to the Citadel. So Jamie, please come forward with your coach, Heather Skowski. Heather? Am I not loud enough? They're really loud. Secondly, we'd like to recognize Madison Flynn for being selected as the 2A East Regional Cross Country Champion. Madison is joined by her cross country coach, Emily Denoto. Next, we'd like to congratulate Braden Hurd and Grayson Lewis for attending Governor's School this past summer. And we were also pleased to announce that this year we have 3 students who will be invited to the summer 2022 camp. So Braden and Grayson, please come forward. The following students have won the CTE Poetry and Art Contest. First, we have Cheyenne Henry, Violet Gonzalez. And Isabella Blora. And would the teacher please come up, Ms. Wheeler? And for the art portion of the contest, Raven Abellarosa and Jenna Moxley. And now we have some staff recognitions. First, we'll begin with Ms. Heather Tolson, our 2021-22 Classified Employee of the Year. Give you a hug, you know how that goes. Next, Athletic Director Alfie Wheeler, representing Manteo High School's entire athletic department and program for winning the Wells Fargo Cup for the 2021 season. This is the first time since 2008-09 the school has earned this title as the best school in the conference. Finally, we'd like to recognize our staff that presented at the Ignite Virtual Professional Development Summit. And we'll start with Ms. Bailey Allison. Ms. Tara Wheeler. Ms. Lisa Matthews. Ms. Raleigh Hudak. Ms. Emily Denoto. And Ms. Suzanne Pack.
Thank you, Principal Luciano, and thank you and congratulations to everyone for being recognized tonight. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our recognitions tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. On behalf of the Board of Education, I'd like to thank the Gaddies and VFW Post 10950 for their generosity, and also like to congratulate the recipients of the awards that were given out today. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, pressure. We'll now move to public comment, and I'll read the following statement before we... Oh, I missed something. Okay. Next, we will have instructional highlights, teacher coaching and AVID strategies. Dr. Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are going to have Mr. Luciano come back up here and share some things with you, but I do want to say that we are extremely grateful and excited about the strong academic focus that Manteo High School has. And Principal Luciano is going to share some highlights and strategies with you, but one thing in particular I'm very excited about is the outstanding job that this school does, among many things, but particularly their AVID program. When AVID is a program that stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination, and it teaches students common sense life skills that will help them be successful in high school, but in college. And I think Manteo High School does one of the best jobs at implementing AVID of any school in the country, and you're going to see an example of some of the work that they do here in that. And I'm very excited that this school is well on track to become what's called an AVID demonstration school, and Principal Luciano is going to share that process with you tonight. But that's going to be an extremely well-deserved recognition for this school for that program as they work to achieve it. So we're just very thankful for the work that goes on here, and I know you're going to see and be very proud of some of the strategies that you see tonight. So, John, we'd like you to come back up if you would. Thank you.
In terms of applying to be an AVID demonstration school, let me just briefly tell you that process is a 2-year process. We did apply about a month ago. We've been thinking about it for quite a few years. We got held up by COVID, like so many other programs. We hope to hear something this spring, and if we're accepted, then the following year they'll come and they'll check the school out and see whether or not we're worthy to be a demonstration school. If we're a demonstration school, that means other schools across the country, mostly obviously from North and South Carolina, would come and visit us and see the things we're doing. You know, I've stood here before. We have a nice banner up there about how we were an A school in 2017 and 2018. 2020, we would have been, but the pandemic. And I owe a lot of that to your support as a board and to the DEF support through some of their funding to our AVID program. I believe if it wasn't for the AVID program, we wouldn't have had those accolades. So I owe a lot of some of the personal positive things that have been said about Manteo to those people into the AVID program, so thank you. So, part of that, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Bailey Allison. She serves as our instructional coach and our instructional technology facilitator. This is the first year she has now served in both capacities. Ms. Allison was hired as our instructional coach several years ago. At that time, we also had a separate instructional technology facilitator. However, over the summer, with the blessing of our superintendent and you, the board, we combined those two positions into one, and now we have our instructional coach is also our technology facilitator, and Ms. Allison fills that role. Not bad to save a little money, by the way, so thank you for that. In this role, Ms. Allison's main responsibility is creating and developing professional development to all our teachers. With the recent retirements of many staff members and many of our colleagues leaving the profession for other careers, professional development has taken on an even more important role. It is imperative that we help new teachers and new hires and new to our district teachers with the job and the transition. Our teachers currently attend professional development 2 days a month, and our teaching assistants, which we started just this year, attend monthly. The topics are aligned with the school's goals and vision, so they are regularly incorporate AVID strategies as well as the interests of the staff, which have been determined by surveys administered by Ms. Allison. Ms. Allison also serves as our beginning teacher liaison. She meets with the beginning teachers and their mentors monthly and provides them with additional professional development. Ms. Allison is part of this year's cohort of emerging leaders and is working on a master's in administration through East Carolina. So, Ms. Allison.
My name is Bailey Allison. I'm the ITF and instructional coach at Manteo High School. I get the privilege of working with educators and making sure that they are helping create engaging lessons for all students. I oftentimes get to work one-on-one with teachers, so I'll go into classrooms, I'll observe the class, I'll take notes, and then we do a debrief session and talk about different things that they might be able to do to enhance their lessons. So one of my jobs as an instructional coach at Manteo High School is being the BT liaison. So I'm working with the beginning teachers and making sure that they have all the tools in their toolbox in order to facilitate learning, even though they're new to the profession. It's really important as an instructional coach to build relationships with all of your teachers, so just spending time getting to know everybody, how they prefer to receive professional development, so gathering some surveys and seeing who likes to work one-on-one with coaching, who likes to take more of a group approach, so working with departments after school. So there's a lot of different ways that an instructional coach can get in the classroom working with students through teaching. All students learn in different types of ways. So one of the things that I do is work with teachers and providing that lens of making sure that all of our students that prefer visuals are having some sort of visual content to even just review the instructions for a lesson. We have students that like to hear things out loud, so sometimes I work with teachers to record the instructions, so if a student's absent at home, they're able to review the lesson and hear their teacher's voice.
Instructional coaching here at Manteo High School has become more and more significant, especially over the last couple of years in what's happening in education. One of the most important roles an administrator has nowadays is to hire and then retain staff. And in order to retain staff, we have to do a heck of a lot of things to help them through the transition from wherever they came, if it's another school, or new to the profession. So an instructional coach now has an incredible important role, and in the long run, saves a lot of money in aggravation for the school.
AVID strategies are a really big part of the professional development that we do here at our school. It's really important for us, for our new teachers, to become acclimated with AVID strategies and then to integrate them into their classroom on a regular basis.
One of the things that really helped me was getting a background with AVID. So right out of college, I was an AVID tutor for 2 years, and then I got a job teaching AVID, and I taught AVID for 10 years at the middle school level. From there, I then had the opportunity to be a staff developer for AVID, so I train teachers using AVID strategies, and I bring that to my practice. So within all the instructional coaching that I do, there's always an AVID strategy or some of the methodologies behind me working with teachers.
That's what I was looking for, fun.
Another thing that I make sure to do while coaching is help teachers improve their workflow and communication. So making sure that teachers have organized lesson plans that students are able to follow, even if they had to follow on their own. So everything is clear and they can go back to it and use it as a resource. But when teachers are able to do all of that, then it ends up saving time in the long run and kind of lessens the stress for everyone in the room. Since I've been here at Manteo High School, I can see that teachers are getting creative about what they're able to do with their students. We're kind of putting this flipped idea that a high school classroom could almost look like an elementary school classroom if you're developing stations and able to get students working together in different types of groups, but also providing teachers an opportunity for themselves to get into coach mode so they're able to coach their students, and it's not just a 90-minute lecture like it was, when I was in school. Teachers are able to talk to each student individually and getting to know who's in their classroom and what they like and what they're thriving with at the moment, and continue to build those strengths within the class. I believe that reflection is an opportunity for all of us to grow. So by helping teachers have a moment of reflection during those coaching debrief sessions and helping teachers provide opportunities for their students to reflect on the content allows for all of us to grow in a positive way. So that way our future is bright.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak here tonight and share kind of my practice with you. So I am the instructional coach, and I'm Bailey Allison. And so, just three of the big things that I do: I coach teachers, I'm the BT liaison, and I help develop professional development. So when I'm working with teachers, this is kind of how I model our sessions together. I meet with the teacher and we figure out a particular goal, and this is usually driven by the teacher, something that they're excited about trying in their classroom, but they're not too sure about how to do it. So we develop a plan together, and I sit in the class. Usually it's, like 15, 20 minutes focusing on a particular thing. One of the teachers that we're working with right now, we're looking at different group settings and how to make that most effective for whichever types of group they want to do, some intentional grouping. We use the scope and sequence document in order to kind of guide our coaching, and then I debrief with the teachers after observing their lesson and kind of set those goals, and then we just kind of start the process over again. And so I'm in the classroom monitoring the students and kind of looking at those small steps that teachers could do to adjust their lessons so more students are engaged or making growth. I'm also the BT liaison, and this is where I've kind of organized our curriculum and making sure that teachers have full access to everything that they need, not only from Manteo High School, but from Dare County schools. So I've got a Google Classroom that we put all of our information on, and so if they need to know how to set up their voicemail for their telephone, they have a go-to place to check that out. If they are looking for different strategies, I've got our best practices listed in there, which are all of our AVID strategies hosted in one place so teachers can kind of go and choose what fits for their lesson. We meet once a month for PD, and I coach a lot of these teachers as well, so I go into their classrooms and do the coaching model. But we meet once a month for PD, and we have a guide. And on these slides, those overviews are hyperlinked, so you can kind of see the kind of stuff that we're doing within those sessions. But last time we were focused on lesson plans, so looking at objectives and making sure that teachers have kind of a sequence and a flow within their classroom. So like I mentioned in the video, just making sure that things are organized and students know how much time is going to be spent on a particular activity within the class, just so they can know that they're not spending 90 minutes on one particular thing and that there's a goal in mind. And we do all of the AVID strategies. Like I said, I'm an AVID staff developer, so that's what I do during the summer, is work with AVID teachers, and I bring all of that along with me when working with educators and making sure that the strategies have been researched and they're good work for students. I've also developed professional development. Like Mr. Luciano said, we do this twice a month with our teachers, and we're also doing some TA staff development. And I took a look at the working conditions survey along with some surveys that we sent teachers, so trying to make sure that teachers are receiving professional development that is meaningful and relevant. And so we've got a lot of opportunities for teachers to collaborate together. So we have like a professional learning community situation once a month, and then we have specific strategies. And as the instructional technology facilitator, I'm also showcasing a variety of digital tools that enhance learning in the classroom as well. And with our teacher assistants, we're looking at maximizing workflow and introducing small things that they can do in the digital realm that will help them work with students in a faster pace or make sure that resources are readily available. And so they're less stressed and they can help students a little bit more able to grab what they need. So that's basically kind of what I do as the instructional coach. I also have the instructional technology facilitator side as well, but they blend so well together. I feel like an instructional technology facilitator is a coach, and these days with instructional practices, you cannot ignore the digital tools, and that kind of builds as part of the instructional coaching. And I've got a couple of quotes here from some teachers, and I think overall there's a lot of really good feedback from our professional development, and like I said, one of the big things that teachers wanted was an opportunity to collaborate together, and they're definitely getting more of that than what they've had in the past. So I'd like to thank you, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for your evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've been told we're now moving to public comment, and I have a big script in front of me that I'm not going to read, but the expectation is that there will be civility and decorum in terms of the public comments here. The comments should be directed at the Board of Education and not any personnel. We're the ones that make the policy here. We're the ones that make the decisions, hold us accountable. And if you have any questions in terms of the board policies, I would suggest that you contact the board members and ask us why we made the decisions that we did. So without further ado, again, we more than appreciate courteous and respectful presentations. We demand those from you. And again, if you have any concerns or questions that you want to address with us, please bring it to our direct attention. Each person or organization will be granted 3 minutes, and when the red light indicates the time is up, please move away from the podium. We have a lot of people that want to make public comments, so in order to get through all this, the expectation is that you'll respect that time limitation. Thank you. Molly Goldberg.
Actually, one of my best friends is if you guys want to hold the microphone, I think that might be better. And if you want to come, okay, you want to hold that? Well, actually, let's see if we can get that a little bit better. There we go. I think that'll work. You good? Okay, there you go.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Molly Goldberg y soy una estudiante de segundo grado en el programa de inmersión de español en la escuela Kitty Hawk. Hi, my name is Molly Goldberg and I am a second grader in the dual language immersion program at Kitty Hawk Elementary School.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Lola Chovas y soy una estudiante de segundo grado en el programa de inmersión de español en la escuela Kitty Hawk. Hi, my name is Lola and I am a second grader in the dual language immersion program at Kitty Hawk Elementary School. We are here to share some of our favorite things about our teachers and this program.
Estamos aquí para compartir algunas de nuestras cosas favoritas sobre nuestros maestros y este programa.
Uno de mis recuerdos favoritos en el jardín de infancia estaba descubriendo que su animal favorito es una llama porque tiene muchos de esos en Perú y conocí a todos mis amigos. One of my favorite memories of Senora Granda in kindergarten was finding out her favorite animal is a llama because she has a lot of those in Peru, and meeting all my friends.
Uno de mis recuerdos favoritos con la señora Granda in kindergarten fue aprender sobre Perú. One of my favorite memories of Señora Granda in kindergarten was learning about Peru. Uno de mis recuerdos favoritos con el señor Rodríguez en primer grado fue aprender a mejorar nuestro mundo y cuidarlo y cuidarnos unos a otros. Además, me gusta bailar al ritmo de la música latinoamericana. One of my favorite memories of Senor Rodriguez in first grade was learning how we can make our world better by taking care of it and each other. Also, I like dancing to Spanish music. To be continued.
Thank you very much. That was enlightening. Lola Chavez, I'm saying that correctly?
Uno de mis recuerdos favoritos en primer grado fue aprender sobre lo que la gente de otras culturas hace durante las fiestas. One of my favorite memories of Senor Rodriguez in first grade was learning about what people in other cultures do for the holidays. Uno de mis recuerdos favoritos de la profe Connie es la año en segundo grado. Son diferentes formas de resolver problemas de matemática y todo sobre su país, Chile. One of my favorite memories of Prof. Connie this year in second grade is different ways to solve math problems and all about her country, Chile.
Uno de mis recuerdos favoritos este año en segundo grado con Profe Connie es aprender sobre celebraciones culturales. One of my favorite memories of Profe Connie this year in second grade is learning about other cultural holidays and the ways they are celebrated.
We learn so much more than just Spanish language in school.
Aprendemos mucho más que el idioma español en la escuela. We get to learn about other cultures and countries from those who live there every day.
Aprendemos sobre otras culturas y países que quienes viven allí todos los días. The dual language gives me language immersion program gives me confidence to meet people who look and sound different from me and people in my family.
El programa de inmersión de español me da confianza para conocer personas que se ven y suenan diferentes a mí y a la gente de mi familia. Thank you for giving us this awesome opportunity at our school.
Gracias por darnos esta increíble oportunidad en nuestra escuela.
Thank you, young ladies. Jackie Lupian.
Hi, I am Jackie Lupine, and I am in the 4th grade DLI program. We really like Spanish class. The teachers are very nice. They came all the way from South America to help us and teach us. Knowing the Spanish language is something I can use throughout my life. We are in Spanish class not just to learn, but to experience it and have fun. I'm grateful that this wonderful opportunity was available to me during my first years at N.C.G.S, and I wish for this program to continue. Hola, mi nombre es Lulu y yo soy en 4º grado. Hi, my name is Lulu and I'm in 4th grade DLI program. Thank you for letting me talk today and for supporting the DLI program. I like the program because we get to learn and celebrate other cultures and traditions. For example, we have celebrated Dia de los Muertos and Dia de los Velitas and many more. I like crafting while learning about other people and their cultures. Recently, we have learned about Colombian tribes. I was surprised to hear that some tribes still live in clay huts. Hi, my name is Stella and I'm in the 4th grade in the DLI program. I'm grateful I can talk to you today. My favorite part of class is that we can speak in a different language to people in different countries. For example, when my family went to Colombia, we were able to make friends with other children because we can speak their language. I liked being able to communicate with others while I was traveling. One of my dreams is to travel to Spanish-speaking countries and make friends there. Also, we have a great bond with our class since we've been together for 4 years. En el futuro, puedes hablar español a millones de personas. In the future, we will be able to communicate to millions of people with Spanish. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Stella Berryman. Oh, she was in that group too? All right, we'll move on. How about Lula? Lulu, oh, she was in there too? Okay. Michelle Sanchez?
Perfect, thank you. Good evening. My name is Mikel Alamadine Sanchez. You heard from my daughter Molly and her friend Lola about how much they love the DLI program. I also have a 10th grader and 2 sons who graduated from Dare County schools. And I'm also a substitute teacher in Dare County, and I work every week in the EC classrooms where there's a great need for teachers right now, in addition to the dire need for substitute teachers. First, I'd like to thank you all for continuing to make the health and welfare of your teachers and students and community a priority. I have substitute dates booked through May already, and I feel comfortable taking these jobs because of the hard decisions that you've made to protect us. Second, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the teachers and administrators whose dedication to our children during this difficult year has helped create a safe and nurturing environment in which the kids can learn, grow, and express themselves in. I would also like to show my appreciation and gratitude for 2 programs that I feel have helped make Dare County such an exemplary school system. As a parent and a sub, I've seen firsthand the amazing results coming from the dual language Spanish immersion program. My daughter is not only becoming bilingual at age 8 and able to read and write above grade level in 2 languages and translate for others when the skill is needed, and communicate with others who might not know the English language, but she's learning to appreciate and embrace the world that exists outside of this beautiful little island that we live on. The program is going to allow her unique opportunities to travel, to share with others, and to help build bridges that are so greatly needed in this world. My father speaks 3 languages fluently, and he's traveled the world with his job because of this skill. And as an English-only speaker, I'm actually overwhelmed with appreciation that Dare County has offered this program, and I only wish that my older children had had the same opportunities. And I hope that you've met all of the DLI teachers who've been hired to teach these classes because they truly are gifted, passionate, and dedicated educators, instilling a love of learning and critical thinking skills. My daughter's teachers, Senora Granda, Senor Rodriguez, and Profe Connie, have played a special role in her education. She's exploring multiple cultures and learning the importance of good communication and appreciation for diversity. I'd also like to touch on how essential I felt that the Social Emotional Learning Program, SEL, has been to the students this year. As a sub, I've had the opportunity to sit in on many of the SLE lessons presented at Kitty Hawk. The lessons have helped students learn healthy coping skills, supporting the students as they grow into confident young people who feel ready to navigate the complex and rapidly changing realities of the world. The program's thoughtful lessons also help create an environment of unity, compassion, and empathy while focused on real-life experiences that can help our kids. These are programs that we should all be embracing as they truly benefit the needs of our students and the future of our children. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today and for your commitment and your dedication to our children in this community.
Thank you, Michelle. Amanda Lotus.
Hello, my name is Amanda Lotus, and I live in Kill Devil Hills. Last month, the Dare County Board of Commissioners passed a resolution reaffirming opposition of United Nations Agenda 21. I and others are grateful that our local BOC wished to revisit this material in order to expose its destructive intent. Also known as Agenda 2030, this exhaustive plan seeks to force the dystopian Great Reset in which Americans wouldn't own private property, homes, cars, farms, or have control over their own bodies. This plan is currently being implemented under the guise of sustainable development and the COVID-19 crisis. Please read Klaus Schwab's COVID-19, The Great Reset, to understand how. Do you not see that this is the fate we are facing as we watch vaccine mandates force people to lose their jobs and remove the ability to travel? Did the lockdown's closing of small businesses while big businesses were allowed to stay open make sense to you? Forced masking, social media censorship, and the prediction of a global climate crisis that will further restrict individual freedoms is what we're all witnessing now. The strategic purpose of the government's response to COVID is to force us into compliance. The tactic being used is fear. The overarching goal is control. Fear is used to gain our compliance. In New York City and elsewhere, we're watching the unvaccinated barred from entering restaurants, bars, gyms, museums. Vaccine passports are being implemented around the world that track and trace and inform you when to take your next booster. People in Australia, including those who test negative, are being taken to quarantine camps against their will, and you'll not be seeing this on CNN or Fox. Employees tell patrons to show me your papers, followed by the excuse, I'm just doing my job. The result is a two-tiered, segregated society. Fear and division, fear and division. Can you remember a time in history in which our grandparents and great-grandparents fought against such oppressiveness? We simply ask that you become aware of Agenda 21 and educate yourself, not only for your own family, but for all of us, including future generations. Please see the Agenda 21 page at daretoshareobx.org to view the BOC's resolutions, speeches, and letters. And I will end by focusing on one aspect of this totalitarianism: restricting children's ability to breathe and preventing them from seeing expressions of affection and smiles all day, every day, is child abuse, physically and emotionally. You cannot escape viruses and bacteria, they're everywhere. Masks do nothing but prevent oxygen intake and harbor pathogenic bacteria like strep to breathe in all day long. The tide of knowledge is slowly coming to those who still don't see it, and you will soon understand
Thank you, Amanda.
What you've been mandating is harmful and wrong. Thank you.
Amanda, thank you for your comments. I know we received some correspondence on the Agenda 21, and I will be polling my board members in terms of this issue. Thank you. Next, Kate Serino.
Good evening. My name is Kate Serino. Amanda has just provided you a brief primer on Agenda 21 and what we currently face as a nation and a county. I would like to assure you this is not conspiracy theory. This is 40 chapters of a document that has existed since 1992, when George H.W. Bush signed on to it for the United States in Rio de Janeiro. It includes a chapter on education, and in fact, much of what we are experiencing in schools today can be traced back to this very document, so let's explore. Let's look at COVID measures like forced masking and forced quarantine. These are lawless mandates that have trampled on constitutional rights of students and shredded federal law for 3 years running. This erosion of liberty for the supposed good of the collective, that is textbook Agenda 21. How about the recent vilification of parents who dare to stand, advocate, and strive to protect God-given unalienable rights? This serves to create fear, chill free speech, further erode the Constitution and its First Amendment protections. That's also Agenda 21. What about the CRT push and transgender push in schools today? These create division. United we're strong, and of course divided we are weak. Our divisions have been crafted to include male versus female, black versus white, gay versus straight, right versus left, rich versus poor, vaxxed versus unvaxxed, and the list continues to grow. The country is divided, as are our classrooms. Mission accomplished, that is definitely Agenda 21. Let's look at No Child Left Behind in 2001, Common Core in 2007, and the new 2021 focus on equity. What do these things have in common? They erode state borders in education, they federalize education, and thereby continue the pattern of violating the Constitution. Ironically, they all seek to minimize academic diversity both across state lines and within a classroom. When equity of outcome is the overarching goal, not equal opportunity to achieve, but equal results, we are left with uniform mediocrity. A generation of indoctrinated students who are unequipped with tools to fight back, very much Agenda 21. How about the Global Schools Push? Dare County Schools currently contracts with Participate Learning. This organization is a benefit corporation, part of the new B economy, with a charter not to deliver profits to shareholders, but to deliver progress to shareholders on UN Sustainable Development Goals in furtherance of Agenda 21. So in fact, our entire school district is in violation of the Board of Commissioners' resolutions against Agenda 21 in Dare County. Teachers are unwittingly indoctrinating students with UN propaganda through this program that potentially leads both parties in the joint destruction of their own freedoms. I would like to close with a startling quote from the chairman of the 92 Agenda 21 Summit. He stated, "Isn't the only hope that industrial nations collapse? And isn't it our responsibility to bring that about?" See, this has never been about a virus, folks. This is all about control, and it's all connected. Agenda 21 is about power, control, and fear. Please visit daretoshareopx.org for more information, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Kate, for your comments. Vince Logan.
As a parent of 2 Dare County students, I'm here to say that the time for mandatory masking is over. The logic behind mandatory masking is absolutely embarrassing, and it's time for it to end. Just think about how silly it is that right now in Dare County, the only people wearing masks are in this room. It's pure theater, and it'd be funny except for the fact that I have 2 kids wearing masks all day in school to protect them from something that poses absolutely no serious threat to them. I have a kindergartner in the dual language program attempting to learn Spanish while wearing a mask from a teacher wearing a mask. We love our teachers, they're doing an incredible job, and we love the program, but that makes absolutely no sense, and it can't go on. The most frustrating thing is that all of you know and understand this, which is why you voted to make masks optional to begin the school year. I do understand that we're basically being held hostage by our health department and the absurd contact tracing and quarantine policy, which resulted in hundreds of perfectly healthy Dare County students being quarantined for no reason while masks were optional. I hope we can all agree that doing the right thing should never be contingent on whether or not someone else is also going to do the right thing. Speaking of the health director, on December 3rd, she appeared at a function in Duck. I'm grateful that the OBX voice was there to get pictures because they show her posing for pictures with a mask on, but once she thought the cameras were off, they show her without a mask, shoulder to shoulder, in a room full of other unmasked people. No matter what she says, her actions tell you everything you need to know about how vital she believes masks are. Understand, my point isn't that I think she should have worn a mask. It's quite the opposite. I want parents to, again, be able to make a choice just like she did. I'm not anti-mask, I'm pro-choice. There are around 40 counties in the state with mask-optional policies in school. The sky hasn't fallen in any of those counties. And we know this because if it had, I promise you, we'd have heard about it from our health director. On December 6th, Union County provided a blueprint for how to end the pointless contact tracing and quarantining so mask optional will work and get us out of this mess. I'll provide you all with a copy, and I'm asking the board to read it, act on it, and end this madness once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Appreciate it. Gina Elko. Gina Elko. Sir, appreciate it.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with the hope of being heard. I want to talk about the future of children in Dare County. I would like to start with 3 definitions. First definition is parent, a person whose job is to be caretaker of a child. Second definition, teacher, a person whose job is to teach students about certain subjects, i.e. language, math, science. Third definition, choice, the opportunity or power to choose between 2 or more possibilities, or the opportunity or power to make a decision. In Dare County, at the beginning of the 2021 school year, over 60% of parents and teachers voted for mask optional. Parents and teachers voted to have a choice. They voted to have personal autonomy over their own bodies and their children's bodies. This choice has been replaced with absolute federal, state, and county government authority, therefore stripping parents and teachers of the right to do their job effectively. Concerning the future, last week in Raleigh, members of the Joint Legislative Commission of Governmental Operations Subcommittee met on the use of federal COVID funding. They questioned Governor Cooper's COVID response team. During that meeting, Senator Chuck Edwards, co-chair of the subcommittee, said, quote, "There is no clear comprehensive off-ramp, and the Cooper administration refuses to acknowledge that we are no longer in the state of emergency," unquote. Secretary Mandy Cohen also clarified that a student exposed to a COVID case would need to quarantine unless the student exposed was masked, vaccinated, or had COVID in the last 90 days. That's interesting because I know many, many parents whose children have been quarantined regardless of these factors, therefore showing that you do not trust the masks or vaccines are effective if you're still quarantining. Many viruses, the common cold, rhinovirus, flu, and COVID, have seasonal patterns. They spike, drop down, they mutate. If one believes that masking and getting an emergency use vaccine stops any virus, you are misguided, yet boosting your immune system is most effective, but not popular. Masks. Cloth mask, Anna, Elsa mask. I was a fireman, professional firefighter for 22 years, so I had a career of wearing masks. These do not protect you. The mask never stops the particles. All these masks have the protection of 80 to 100 microns. Viruses are spread via droplets and aerosol transmissions at a size of 1 to 60 microns. These virus particles are so tiny, wearing a mask is like throwing a handful of sand through a chain link fence and expecting it to catch it. The future of our children, as it stands now, children will be more restricted than any other age population, even though they are time and time again proven to be the lowest risk at 0.00002%. The fact is common knowledge, but ignored because there are years of financial gain by pharmaceuticals with no liability in various county entities. I have one last question to ponder. Is it God's will to cover children's noses and mouths because of adult fear?
Thank you, Gina. Mr. Truelove, Parker Truelove. I'm sorry, Parker Truelove. Pardon me.
Hi, my name is Parker Truelove, and I attend Dare County Schools. I'm here to talk about the mask mandate. I think that we should not have to wear masks. I do not like them or think they do anything. I also think they are a big distraction and affect our learning. For example, if a kid does not have their mask on right, the teachers have to stop teaching to get on the student, which stops our learning. We also have 3 very short mask breaks because a few kids cannot behave. Our breathing should not be taken away because kids cannot behave. I don't understand how it is okay to strap something on a kid's face and force them to learn with it. The staff get on the student about wearing their mask properly, but they don't wear it always. Wear theirs correctly. I've seen multiple staff in the hallway not wearing their mask properly. We should not be disciplined if they aren't going to follow their own rules. I don't think that it should be up to school board. But our parents should decide. This is America. We are supposed to have freedom. Why is it important to wear it at school but not all around us in our day-to-day life? As children, we are now suffering from headaches, acne, and exhaustion. We are children, and people need to think about what they are putting us through. Please consider making masks optional. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Parker. Macy Churaz. Macy, are you here? Macy? Thank you. Macy Churaz. C-H-O-R-A-Z. Did I say that right?
No, it's okay though. Good evening. My name is Macy Chavez. I'm a mom of 3 kids in Dare County Schools, one of whom you heard from this evening in Spanish. I'm sure you have noticed that there are quite a few more children here. These are the kids that the decisions you make impact directly. I hope you really listen to what they have to say tonight. They are why we are all here. We need to shift our focus at these board meetings on bettering our schools, expanding the innovative programs, and keep the kids like these here this evening on the forefront of our minds. If we continue to allow these meetings to be a platform for hate, non-truths, and disregard for evidence-based science, then we will be doing a disservice to Dare County schools. In the spirit of focusing on the good in our schools, aside from the DLI information that my daughter shared this evening, I wanted to share a story of SEL, social and emotional learning, that has directly impacted our family. Near the beginning of the school year, my kindergartner asked me if I knew what I should do if I have a friend who is upset because something bad happened to them. Curious as to what her answer would be, I told her I did not know and asked her to share with me what she would do. She went on to tell me that she would just sit with them and listen. She shared that she learned that when a friend is upset, that it might not be the best to share what would make him or her feel better because everyone is different. Come to find out, her class read a book titled The Rabbit Listened, and it's about a boy who built a really big tower only to have it knocked down by a flock of birds. One after another, the boy's friends came over to him to tell him what he should do to feel better, but it did not work. Finally, the last friend, a rabbit, sat near the boy and listened to him talk about why he was mad, how upset he was, and what he wanted to do about it. In the end, the boy felt better after having a friend who was just there for him, actively listening. Thanks to social and emotional learning, my 6-year-old kicked off her tenure at Kitty Hawk Elementary learning how to comfort a friend. The differences are not bad, and also feeling confident explaining it to our parents. While this example might be trivial to some, I can't tell you how comforting it is that our schools put such emphasis on ensuring that our children do not just get quality education, but become good, inclusive, and empathetic young people. As we enter into 2022, please prioritize listening to and having conversations with the actual students, parents, and teachers of Dare County schools, and make decisions based on the best interests, health, and safety of our students and teachers. While you consider the current mask policy in place tonight, I hope that you please fully understand the quarantine measures and the impact it will have on our community as a whole if masks are no longer mandated. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Macy. Katie Morgan.
Hello, my name is Katie Morgan, and tonight I'm going to speak to you from my heart. My goal is to try to squelch some rumors and counteract some misconceptions that maybe teachers and administrators and other people in the community may think about parents who have been speaking at the school board meetings, parents who have been speaking out against things such as social emotional learning, as it has been currently revamped since COVID. The over-sexualization of children, these ridiculous mask policies that are nothing but optics, the quarantining guidelines, the North Carolina toolkit, that is, as quoted by our North Carolina Secretary of Health, Mandy Cohen, just guidelines, not anything you have to do. And of course, critical race theory, which by the way is not what most of you guys think it is. It creates nothing but division and hate. I suggest you take a deep dive into its roots and do a little bit of research. Critical race theory is not the whitewashing of history. What it is at its core is a hyper-narrative ideology that is rooted in Marxism. A good book to reference for more context will be Fault Lines by Vodi Bachman. I'm a native to the Outer Banks and an alumni of this very school, Manteo High School. I attended all Dare County schools. My roots run deep in this community. This is the community that raised me, and these are the teachers who taught me how to be confident in my public speaking skills, as much as I don't like public speaking. I have family who currently work for Dare County Schools, and I as well at one point worked for Dare County Schools. I would like to say how much I do value our teachers. What you've been put through by students, parents, and administration, etc., in the last nearly 2 years is unprecedented. The way your job has been so incredibly politicized is absolutely absurd. While I did pull my children from Dare County Schools, I know that is not an option for many other families who feel the same as I do. So on their behalf, I will speak up and I will stand up. And just because I am willing to stand up for my parental rights and the rights of our children does not mean that I hate teachers, do not value them as educators. I'm not the reason for low teacher morale. I'm a concerned parent and citizen because I am willing to dig deep into some of these programs that are being implemented, and I am willing to spend my time and energy to get to the root of the problem, and I am willing to speak out when I see things that actually are harming our children. And as much as I do hate public speaking, I am willing to stand up here in front of all of you today and express my concerns to the people who are supposed to be hearing them and taking them into account, and not disregarding my thoughts and my concerns as merely conspiracy theories, but If you consider a person that does research on a subject and then uses logic and critical thinking skills to form an educated opinion instead of just blindly believing whatever you're told is a conspiracy theorist, then fine, I guess I fit the mold. It is ridiculous that we have reached a point in our society where you can quote exact numbers straight from the CDC website and documented literature from the National Institute of Health and Vaccine Studies, and people still call you a conspiracy theorist. Now, there's a difference between listening and hearing. I ask you to please hear what we have to say and take it into consideration.
Tom Serino. Oh. I'm sorry?
Hi, we're switching places.
Okay.
I'm Bobby Wells. I'm probably down in your stack.
Okay, I'll
And
switch.
so Tom's going to take my
Bobby,
spot.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
hi. Good evening. Thank you for having us and allowing us to speak. I greatly appreciate this opportunity. My name's Bobby Wells. I reside in Kitty Hawk. I have 2 children in the school system, one of which has a disability, autism, and I also help support other families on the autism spectrum in their diagnosis and getting supports at schools. I'm very concerned about the mask. It's very difficult for kids on the spectrum not to have mask breaks and to be subjected to the mask. But the reason why I'm here, more so the point of my time with you, is to let you know that Dare County Citizens for Constitutional Rights request certain records in accordance with the North Carolina Public Records Act. Under Chapter 132 of the North Carolina General Statutes, it is the public policy of North Carolina that such records be made available to the public unless otherwise specifically provided by law. So we seek all documentation pertaining to your sworn oath of office, all documentation pertaining to your risk management company, liability coverage, official surety bond carrier, policy numbers, and contact information for each entity. Will you please pass out the request? Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Tom, you want to go next, or you want? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting us switch. I want to say Keith Parker. Keith Parker, great job on the videos. This is the third meeting I've attended with great classroom videos of the teachers working with the students, and it can almost be a highlight reel for how not to wear a mask. So I just want to say I'm glad to have a new leadership. If you look back, most teachers have their mask under their nose, kids have their mask under their nose, and if you're filming it, this is not this film you want to show. I heard tonight you guys are being served North Carolina Public Records because Dare County citizens are seeking your bonding and liability insurance information. Many of you want to know why. Just so all of you understand, you carry liability insurance as a public official so that when you violate your oath or break the law, we the people have recourse without having to wait for the next election. Many of you have mentioned behind the scenes, lots of conversations occur, that you don't want to run again. I ask, is it because of pressure? Now ask yourself again, did you take this leadership position to serve the people or to serve or advance your career? Your mandates continue to shred many state and federal laws. Dare County citizens intend to hold you accountable. Information supporting these findings have been presented to you for many months now. If there are strings and money attached to these decisions, then tell these people no and send the money back. It is very easy to make the correct decision when you don't care who gets the credit or how you can profit from it. Think about it. I would like to leave you with a bit of scripture. Luke 12:2 says, "It would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck and be thrown into the sea than cause one of these little ones to stumble." The situation is fixable, but those of you acting misguided or making cowardly decisions or harming children you represent, if you don't start now following by law and honoring your oath, the citizens must hold you accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. John Carter. John Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R.
Good evening. I'd like to wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas and a blessed holiday season. Once again, I've spoken at one board meeting, and I'll probably speak at a number of others if given that opportunity. But the reason I choose to speak up at these board meetings is because I believe that a great number of our societal problems stem from the lack of biblical education in our school system. And one thing I'd like for you to reflect on in this season is what you say in the Pledge of Allegiance. That two-word phrase, under God. Under God. Where do our rights come from? They flow from God. They don't come from government. Government was instituted to protect our inalienable rights. As members of our Board of Education, you are our government. We look to you to protect our rights, not to dictate them, but to protect them. In 1947, there was a Supreme Court case, Everson. Justice Hugo Black took an excerpt of a letter that was written by Thomas Jefferson to the, I'm going to forget the name of the organization. It was a Baptist organization, and they expressed concern about the separation, about the federal government taking away their ability to practice their religion as they chose. And Thomas Jefferson famously said, "There's a wall of separation between church and state," but that's not all that he said. He just took those words and bent them to his purpose. As a matter of fact, that wall of separation of church and state that he used in that Supreme Court case has been quoted or used in litigation 3,500 times. The First Amendment in our Constitution concerning freedom of...
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Appreciate it. Courtney Haynes, excuse me. Courtney Haynes, Haynes.
My name is Courtney Haynes, and I am a Dare County parent. I think the thing that I've been most disappointed to learn since COVID was invented is how many of the leaders in this country, both elected and hired, are champions of mediocrity. We have a pandemic in this country. It is a pandemic of intellectual bankruptcy, unearned moral superiority, and arrogant incompetence. Because of you, Dare County children now live in an educational world where there are no faces, no facial expressions, and they are isolated from friends and teachers, even when they're in the same room. Masks lead to distress, isolation, depression, anxiety, and an inability to correctly interpret and understand body language, facial expression, and the spoken word. And as we all know, many of you educators, you know that all three of those are required for effective communication. And I assume we want our children to be able to, at the very least, communicate effectively. Kids are not complaining about the masks. That's what the people use as the excuse, right? So kids must be doing fine with that. When did we let children make their own decisions about their education or how they're breathing? That's not how we do this. We know most of you have not done any research on your own. We can tell because you get up here every month and you vote yes to restrict our children's breathing and their ability to make friends and to learn effectively. We know you're going to keep voting yes. Whatever that reason is, you have to own that. But Mr. Tauber was correct earlier. We are holding all of you accountable. Parents have been quiet for a lot of decades. That's true. But the American parents are waking up now. And I think school board across the country need to be aware of that. We're not going away. We're not going to go sit quietly in a corner and let you all take our children and do what you want with them. We're not. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Melanie Brewer.
So my name's Melanie Brewer. I'm a mother of 3 children in Kill Devil Hills, and I was a parent of Dare County children until I pulled them in 2020 because of y'all's failure to address my concerns as a parent by enforcing masks ever in the first place. And again, I want to know how many hours does that woman over there have in OSHA and infection control training as the health director of our county health department? Yeah, we're never going to know because there's no dialogue yet. That's okay. So you guys all went to the schools today and toured the schools, I think was what Twitty was saying earlier. Did you happen to eat lunch at school? Were you guys served lunch from the cafeteria? Did you know that they serve chicken nuggets today? Did you know that chicken nuggets are a group 1 carcinogen, such as asbestos and tobacco? It's been proven by the World Health Organization. You can Google it on your phone. So since we're all here for the health and safety and the positive morale of our students, shouldn't we be feeding them a healthy diet instead of chicken nuggets and processed meats and cheese that's really not nutritional at all, and it's not even as good as prison food? I thought that our tax dollars paid for more than that. Come to find out, our tax dollars are paying for that man right there, his salary of $208,000 a year, which, according to govsalaries.com, is 469% higher than the average salary in Dare County schools. So maybe if we take some of that extra cash that we're given to that dude over there with his 2 superintendent assistants, one of them's right over there, he makes $125,000 a year. Did you know that the cap on these levels of, so like a level 7 superintendent, I'm guessing level 7 is extra education and all of that stuff, is $142,000 a year. That's how much the level 7 superintendent's supposed to be making. Why is he at $208,000? And I heard he gets a $1,000 a month car payment. You wanna know why teachers have low morale in this county? They don't make enough. That's number 1 reason. He wanted to pin it on us through the Outer Banks Voice article that woman over there wrote somewhere. He wanted to pin that on the parents that show up here and speak for the children and speak for the staff who don't want to be masked, who don't want all these authoritarian policies. They want to be left alone. They have degrees in education, and yet everything is programmed and dictated to them, so they have absolutely no autonomy in what they're actually teaching anymore. The government tells them what to teach. You guys accept what the government tells them to teach, and you say, okay, sounds good, we'll vote yes. It's disappointing. It really is disappointing. Low teacher morale comes from overworked and underpaid teachers. There are not enough teachers for the students that are in these schools. Why is that? Poor leadership.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank everybody for their comments. I would like to say, with all due respect, again, the focus should be on the board because we determine salary, and if you don't think it's appropriate, then, as I said, you hold us accountable. Thank you.
Shouldn't we, as the public, know what we're paying the people in this room?
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Right. Next, I would like to turn the meeting over to Candy Tilley, Director of Finance for Dare County Schools, for presenting the 2020-2021 audit report.
Dr. Farley. As we all know, as a requirement of state law that our accounting records be audited annually, tonight it is my honor to introduce you to Paul Carson from Anderson, Smith & White, who will present our fiscal year 2021 audit. Paul.
Thank you, Candy, and good evening, board members and Dr. Farley. I hope you're doing well. Each of you should have received a bound copy of the audited 2021 financial statements that we issued. There were no new accounting standards or pronouncements that had to be implemented this year that had any impact on the financial statement format or presentation compared to last year's financial statements that we issued, so you should be able to match them up to pretty easily if you want to compare the formats. The financial statements cover two main areas that we audit and are required to issue reports on. The financial section covers the first 59 pages of this report, followed by the compliance section, which is on pages 60 through 71. For the financial section, we perform an audit of the actual finances of the school system, which include the amounts and financial disclosures you see in the report. In auditing the finances of the schools, the school system, we perform various procedures to ascertain that the district's finances are reasonably stated and free from any sort of material errors or misstatements. Some of the procedures include confirming cash balances with banks, confirming revenues and receivables with various funding sources. Dare County, DPI, and USDA are major revenue sources. Random testing of payroll and general disbursement transactions and travel reimbursements. We verify these payments have proper authorization and supporting documentation. Testing, we also do testing of account reconciliations and any differences or unusual relationships noted or investigated to ensure that we feel the district's records are reasonably stated and can be relied upon. On pages 1 and 2 of the report is the audit opinion letter that we issued on the financial section of the audit. We are happy to report it is a clean, unmodified opinion, which means we feel that the financial information included in the report is reliable and free of any material misstatement. Starting on page 60 is the beginning of the compliance section of the financial statements. There are several letters we issue that are included here related to various testing, detailed testing we have to perform on the internal controls of the district and the district's compliance with various state and federal laws and regulations. We were required to perform more extensive compliance testing this year due to increased federal funding received by the district that is being used to pay additional costs incurred in response to the pandemic. We're happy to report that all three of these letters are clean, unmodified reports. Basically, these letters let you know that we didn't note any improper use of grant funds and feel that the district's finances appear to have been expended properly and in accordance with budgets approved by the Board of Education. There are a couple pages in the financial information, or a couple pages of the financial information in the audit that I plan to go over. The first is page 12, which is Exhibit 3. Exhibits 3 and 4, Exhibit 4 is on page 14, are essentially the balance sheet and income statement for all of your governmental funds. These schedules show the fund activities and the fund balance on a fund-by-fund basis. In the first column on page 12, next to the last number at the bottom of the page, you see that the general fund balance as of June 30th, 2021 is $3,668,117, which is an increase of about $1.6 million over the amount reported at June 30th, 2020. Due to COVID-19 and many students not being in the classroom much of the year, the district was able to generate cost savings in some operational areas last year. In addition, the district was able to use federal COVID relief funds to help cover expenses for those operational areas where costs increased as a result of the pandemic. These two factors are primarily what enabled the district to increase fund balance this year. Most of the districts we have audited this year have seen their local fund balance increase for these same reasons. One thing we do want to highlight is that during the 08-09 financial crisis, the federal government, as they're doing today, distributed millions of dollars in stimulus funds to the LEAs across the country. Most districts saw their fund balance increase significantly using those funds, or until those funds expired in 2013. Once the federal stimulus funds expired, costs for everything had increased, and districts began to see their fund balances drop back down over the several years that followed 2013. This scenario played out a lot at a lot of districts across the state. With all the uncertainty in the economy right now, we feel it is important for the district to have extra funds in reserve for when the federal COVID relief funds expire in a few years. Costs seem to be rising in all areas now, such as health insurance, retirement contribution rates, fuel cost, and utility cost. They're all rising rapidly. These will all weigh on school systems more heavily once the federal funding expires in a few years. So we feel increasing fund balance and cash reserves is a very wise budgeting strategy right now. We also wanted to point out that your other current expense fund balance was $619,069. Capital outlay was $1,305,558, and individual schools had a combined fund balance of $620,713. Overall, these funds appear to be in sound financial condition with good fund balance and cash reserves at June 30th, 2021. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? All right,
I have one question.
Good, yes, sir.
You talked about increasing the fund balance.
Yes, sir.
To what number?
It's the $3,668,117. It's the first column, second to last number on page 12.
Yeah, but you told us you wanted to increase the fund balance? Or
Well, no, we were just saying that is what your fund balance did increase to.
But you also mentioned that you thought that we should increase it because of certain expenses going up. Do you have a number there that you'd like to see it?
No, I mean, the LGC doesn't hold, they hold counties and municipalities to about 8% is what they require them to have. There's no such requirement. I think last year you said something, that over $2 million would be good. Obviously, as we mentioned, once these federal funds expire and y'all have started basically brunting the force of the rising costs more so, then that's what's going to cause that to come back down. But no, we don't have necessarily a set number
that magic number.
Right. No, there's no set magic number.
Okay. Because I'm saying if we have to go to the Board of Commissioners to increase that, it's kind of nice to go there with a number that some sort of.
And we can, if you'd like, we can kind of maybe look at other districts and see what others are having and get back with you on that.
Thank you. That'd be greatly
We'll
appreciated.
do that.
Anybody else have any questions at this point in time?
Okay. All right, and the next page I'll take you to will be page 58. This is the School Food Service Fund. This schedule shows the revenues, expenses, and change in net position or fund balance for the School Food Service Fund. The program reported a profit of $510,189. In the previous year, there was a loss of $161,000 for a year-over-year improvement of about $671,000. Now, the improvement in profitability over the prior year was primarily due to the fact of, as to be expected with the remote learning environment, food sales did decline significantly by about $465,000. However, management was able to increase federal meal reimbursements by $580,000 due to the USDA providing free meals to all students during the year. In addition, management was able to reduce salaries, food costs, and other program expenses by about $288,000. And the other big item was last year, some of the there was a amount owed to the local fund of about $330,000 that was forgiven, and so that shows as additional revenue down there on the transfers line. So that's what makes up the increase in fund balance there. Cash balances in the program were $227,000 at year end, an increase of $168,000 from the prior year. Hopefully with students back in school, the program will see meal participation and federal reimbursements get back to normal. Overall, the program appears to be improving operationally and is in good financial condition as of June 30th, 2021. Are there any questions on that page before we move on? Okay. And then if you just flip over the next page, page 59, is this is for the child care fund. Much like the previous schedule with the school food service fund, the schedule shows revenues, expenses, and change in net position for the child care fund. The program reported a profit of $30,506. In the previous year, child care reported a loss of $42,000 for a year-over-year improvement of about $72,000. While child care fees, again, as expected, declined roughly $263,000. Management was able to reduce salaries and other program expenses by $311,000, which helped offset some of the decline in revenues. In addition, there was also I think it was roughly $57,000 that was owed last year to the local fund that was forgiven. So again, that's in that transfers from other funds line. And the child care program, just like last year, reported cash balances at the year end of $0. Do I have any questions before we continue? Okay. And then we also just want to point out we issued a separate two-page letter to management regarding some matters in which there was an opportunity for the board to strengthen internal controls and operating efficiency. I did not plan to go over this letter in detail unless there are any specific questions about it. And also,
I have one concern, and Candy, you can help me out on this. Is like in your letter of November 5th, 2021, on purchasing contracts, what somewhat disturbs me is the fact that we're having orders submitted to vendors prior to the approval of the finance office, and that kind of concerns me because I don't want to have to be obligated to pay on these contracts without the finance officer giving the okay. So is there a process that you've put in place that kind of can make sure that the finance officer has?
Well, that'd be, I mean, as far as process in place, that'd be something Candy could talk about.
Okay, well.
We do have a process in place where directors, principals are to put requisitions into the system. It goes through an approval process. If it's from the school level, there's a director that is responsible for approving that. Every purchase order that goes through comes across my desk. There are times when people just neglect to do that. We have addressed that with our staff, especially in light of this management letter. I will say we did have this issue listed in last year's management letter, and the auditors did note that this year it was much better. So it is a work in progress, and we are continuing to do better with our processes and our procedures as far as addressing these types of things.
I'll take it that we're making progress. That's good. Thank you.
And also to point out, as mentioned in this, none of the expenditures were noted were any unusual or questionable nature, and they were in fact reviewed by Candy before they were actually paid. So, are there any other questions about that letter? Anything else?
Also, by law, if there's case law in North Carolina that makes clear that if an order is issued by somebody who doesn't have purchase order issued by somebody who doesn't have approval for it, it's the vendor's risk.
Stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I just, if we have a process, let's do the process so that we have the okay from the finance officer before it gets done.
Yep. And also, we issued a separate 3-page letter that you guys should have that details specific audit items that we're required to communicate to the board about. This letter basically has boilerplate language. It discusses that there were no difficulties or disagreements encountered in dealing with management during the audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements that we noted, and there were no reportable issues noted during the audit. Overall, we felt that the audit went very smoothly this year. and the board appears to be in sound financial condition as of year end. Financially, the district appears to be very well managed, and the finances are very transparent. Our firm audits around 65 school districts across the state, and you all definitely have one of the best managed districts that we visit. I'd like to thank Ms. Tilley and her staff for all their hard work in helping us complete the audit. We have to get information from most departments, but finance definitely bears the biggest burden and gathers everything from other departments for us. With that, does anybody have any questions for me?
Any board member have any questions?
No? All right, well, we really do appreciate you all allowing our firm to work with you and perform the district's audit, and we look forward to working with you next year.
Thank you for your report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we need a motion to receive the 2020-2021 audit report as presented. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion.
Who was that?
I move we receive the 2020-2021 audit report as presented.
Second.
Second by Ms. Balance. We have a motion and a second to receive the 2020-2021 audit report as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor of receiving the 2020-2021 audit report as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Next, I would like to turn the meeting over to Dr. Farley for announcements. Dr. Farley?
Thank you, Chairman. First, I want to thank Candy and her staff. That's an excellent audit, and it's really unheard of for us to save $2 million locally in one particular fiscal year. I'd like to thank our schools. Fantastic day here in Manteo, our administrative team, wonderful teachers, great kids, a lot of wonderful things happening. Thank you for the day. I'd like to recognize Steve Hamp. Steve is the Dare County Schools Teacher of the Year. He finished second in the region. He's a great teacher. We're very proud of the work Steve's done. The Board Policy Committee, which is made up of 3 Board of Education members and some members of the senior leadership team, are working together and studying the 3000 policy series. This is the education program portion of the Board Policy Manual. As you know, we've brought hundreds of policies before the board and updates over the last couple of years. The 3000 series has not been reviewed in some time, and so we're going to take some time after Christmas to go through at least 8 or 9 key policies in that section, including curriculum development, academic freedom, evaluation of instructional programs, selection of textbooks and supplementary materials, and parental inspection and objections to instructional materials. And then lastly, I'm looking forward to working with the board in creating a town hall series after the holidays, and would recommend that we at least have 3, one at the beach here in Manteo and one in Hatteras. So looking forward to work with the board and the community on that. So
I think what we're going to do is we'll meet and try to set those dates and get notice out to the community in terms of when these events are going to occur so that we can have the participation of the community.
Looking forward to it. That's all I have.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the personnel consent agenda, minutes of November 9, 2021 special and regular special meeting or session meetings, budget resolution for fiscal year 2021-2022, donation from Dare Education Foundation for First Light High School, grant from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services for the after-school enrichment program, in the 2021 general record schedule for local government agencies, and the 2021 program record schedule for local public school units. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent
Ms.
agenda.
Bothwell, any second?
I'll second.
Mr. Woody, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion from the board members? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we will hear reports and items of information. The first report will be provided by Dr. Fry. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few state budget highlights. So first, good news, we have a budget for the first time, I believe, in 4 years. We have a lot of happy employees, so there was a 2.5% increase for all state employees coming out of this budget. Tied to that was a part of the budget is raising the minimum wage for classified employees to at least $13 this year, $15 next year, and employees get the higher of those two totals between 2.5% and the $13 in 2022. All employees are getting a $1,000 bonus, and any employee who makes less than $75,000 is also getting a $500 bonus. And thanks to our finance department, they're able to play Santa and provide all employees with those bonuses in the December 20 payroll run. Following December 31st, the Department of Public Instruction is still working on a process of going through the pay scales. So the 2.5% for teachers this year and next is an average. So we're still awaiting some information from the department, clarification on those pay structures. But following Christmas, there's an $1,800 bonus for principals, a $300 bonus for all teachers and instructional employees. This comes from a funding source that the state used to allocate an award for high growth status in schools and with teachers. So that'll most likely be paid in the January payroll run. There's a $1,000 COVID professional learning bonus that comes from the state. We're still waiting for clarification on an audit of what they're looking to accept. So we are a state leader in professional development opportunities for teachers online. So we will have every single teacher will qualify for that. We're just waiting for some more instructions from DPI on that. And then lastly, employees will get retro pay. So depending upon the months of employment with employees, some going back to July 1, some starting in August. For those months prior to January 1, they will get their increase. Do the formula on what their 2.5% increase is over those months, and then that will go into their January check. And then from January onwards, they'll get the increase, whatever that may be. So we have a lot of happy teachers and staff members. Certainly the finance department, glad to get a budget to know what we're exactly working with. And as we've gone through our Coffee with the Superintendent series, face-to-face with teachers over the last 3 weeks, it's never enough for our teachers. It's an underpaid educational position and employment, but they're very thankful that we got a budget and the General Assembly and the governor signed off on the current state budget. So good news all around.
Thank you, Dr. Farley, and anything we can do to help our teachers is greatly appreciated. Next, we will hear a report on the Dare Education Foundation Teacher Housing Task Force from Mrs. Barbara Davidson, Executive Director of the Foundation. Hello, Barbara.
So while Barbara's approaching the podium, Ben Lipchak is also with her tonight. Sam Cortez, who is the chairman of the Dare Education Foundation, couldn't make it tonight. We're so glad that Barbara and Ben are here to tell us a little bit more about the teacher housing task force work that we've been taking on in the last 3 months.
Thank you, everyone. As he said, I'm Barbara Davidson. I'm the Executive Director of the Dare Education Foundation, and I'm so honored to have the chance to present to you tonight. The Dare Education Foundation is a local nonprofit that's mission is to enhance the resources available to our students, educators, and schools. And tonight I'm going to cover a few different things. One is that I've been working closely with a task force, including Ben Lipchak, our board treasurer, Sam Cortez, our board chair, and Adam Blankenship, one of our housing committee members. I'm going to cover a little bit of background on the Dare Education Foundation, and then talk about some of the options we have to move forward. So the Dare Education Foundation is made up of a group of parents, and we wouldn't actually be here without the support of the Board of Education. David Oaksmith, a former chair of the Board of Education, was one of the people who really called for our existence back in 2002. And it was a uniting of parents coming together and the community to say that we believe that when the community comes together, we can do great things for our schools. We're the only nonprofit here in Dare County that supports all 11 of the schools in our county. And our board members include representatives from the Board of Education on committees as well as on the board. We fulfill this mission by doing grants to classrooms and schools, grants to our educators that provide them with professional development funding, college scholarships to our graduating high school seniors, and affordable teacher housing. And that's going to be the focus of our discussion tonight. So when teacher housing started, it was 2008, and at that time, we already had a little bit of a housing crisis on our hands because of the tourism economy here. And the Board of Education came together with DEF and was able to lease land to us for the construction of Run Hill Ridge and Kill Devil Hills. We now have 2 separate housing units, one in Buxton with 12 units and one still at Kill Devil Hills with the 24 units. And one of the things that's been so beautiful to watch is the way that those resources really do enhance the experience for our students. It's helped educators relocate to this community, like Dr. Colvin, our assistant principal from Kitty Hawk Elementary School, who was one of our very first tenants on move-in day and is able to build a long-term career with the county. And then someone like Alicia Rosas from the Dual Language Immersion Program at First Flight Elementary, who's able to relocate to this country and take a position here. Today, all of these units are fully occupied. Run Hill Ridge is entirely occupied with Dare County Schools educators. And one of the things that we really see is that there's strong demand for housing. We have seasonal transitions that happen with our teachers, especially in the summer when there's high hiring needs. And at that time, our wait lists can exceed 20 people at a time. So what's been very clear is that there's a demand, and this is with very minimal advertising of this opportunity to our teachers, because we know that if we were to say we have more housing, they will be there. So we formed this task force, and we've been working with the Board of Education, Dare Education Foundation subcommittee to discuss a few options for moving forward. And one of the things that we want to talk about today is some near-term possibilities for expansion of Run Hill Ridge, while we also have heard and understand the long-term need for us to find opportunity here in Roanoke Island for the expansion of housing. We know we serve 3 distinct communities, and this is a community that does not have housing currently. What we are lacking here on Roanoke Island is land. I know this has been a topic of conversation at past meetings, but we do have some options for expansion. So one of the first things we did as a task force was meet with Albemarle Associates, who created the initial site plan for Run Hill Ridge, to see what our options might be. Well, it turns out, back in 2008, when they developed this plan, if you look at the top portion of this slide, the apartments are 3 buildings on the site, but the site was actually constructed to have a 4th 8-unit building. And it actually has land laid for the septic. It has a little concrete walkway where the entrance would be. So it is there. And so we're at the stage of really looking at, could we expand Run Hill Ridge and add 8 units to this property? This would involve still, although there is a site there for it, permits and approvals. Kill Devil Hills, when we initiated this conversation, realized there's some rezoning issues because the zoning has changed since 2008. And that's all work that would need to be done as part of this. Very small. So this is a potential timeline. 3 months from Board of Education approval to analyze whether or not we could expand Run Hill Ridge. We'd be working with the DEF board for approvals, working with you on getting approval to build, getting construction bids, and evaluating in depth the financing options available for this. Then at the 6-month time, we would have evaluated the storm and septic system approvals. At that point, we'd be coming back to you for Board of Education approval and awarding a construction contract, which would have been bid during that time frame. And then in the 9 to 12 months out from that initial approval to analyze, we'd potentially be able to break ground. 2 years from that time, construction is actually impacted right now as well. We'd have a potential first move-in. So in summary, DEF has been a trusted partner with Dare County Schools. We have a history of success in providing teacher housing, and we're seeking at this point approval to move forward with analyzing the expansion of teacher housing at Run Hill Ridge. Thank you, and I open it up for any questions.
Anybody else speaking?
I'm just here for moral support.
Moral support.
And to answer any questions as the treasurer.
Well, I think Barbara's done a fantastic job. But also let the public know that we're also looking for teacher housing on Roanoke Island as well, and we're pursuing that at some point in time. Thank you. Any board members have any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. With the opportunity for extension, will there have to be much modification to the plans that are already in place?
Potentially not. In fact, we have the original architectural drawings from that building, and that is what would keep our construction costs lower than if we were to go and start from scratch somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
It was actually constructed for 32 units originally. It was actually, the original planning was for 32 units versus 24, and then for some reason it got cut to 24.
Turned out to be a blessing in disguise, I guess.
Well, you know, I think originally this hadn't been tested before, and there was a concern about being able to fill and sustain getting enough teachers into the units. And well, it's turned out that we haven't had that problem at all.
Now, Barbara, if everything goes fine and you'll be able to add the new units, is the task force still going to have monthly meetings, bi-monthly meetings for looking for Roanoke Island, not only in funding, property? You know, I just didn't want the task force just to bring the word Roanoke Island in the future. I'd like for the task force to keep working after the project's been approved and going in that direction, but not let the task force not forget Roanoke Island.
That's one of the things that I certainly hope for as well. It's up to our board, obviously, whether or not the task force would continue, but the sentiment is definitely there that there's strong interest in exploring this. And I think one of the things that we'd be evaluating is the true cost to ensure that we'd have the financial resources available to actively pursue development in Roanoke should land come to us.
And I know the credit union in the past was interest-free loan to get this project started. And I was on DF when we tried to go back to the credit union, and for that time they were not funding any other nonprofit organization for a home for whatever reason. So my understanding now, y'all are looking at another bank. So is that bank understanding that you're looking for an extension on Roanoke Island possibly?
Yes, they are. A couple of things. One, the State Employees Credit Union Foundation has been incredibly gracious in starting these with a 0% interest. We've been in discussions with Town Bank here locally, who's currently one of our organizational sponsors and is interested in supporting a low-interest loan on further development. State Employees Credit Union Foundation, though, has also expressed potential interest in revisiting this after our mortgage is paid off in the Buxton area. So they're not out of the question for future funding. They're out of the question until all of the existing debt to them is paid.
When will that, when is that debt?
6.5 years.
Okay.
We certainly have high demand, so we constantly monitor a wait list. Depending upon the time of year, it can be anywhere between 6 and 18. We clearly could fill 8 apartments here and still get potentially 16 to 20 units here in Manteo, Roanoke Island. So there's high demand with our staff. As Barbara said, we don't advertise that much because teachers know it's a very competitive process. We've potentially talked about a $2 million project with this expansion at Run Hill Ridge. To David's point about continued meetings, I certainly think we should do that. And we may also want to entertain getting into a 5-on-5 setting early in the spring with the Board of Commissioners to take the conversation a little deeper about needs in the school system, our willingness and drive to expand in Roanoke Island. The board could decide to authorize the committee to press ahead tonight. As you saw the timeline in advancing the work, The board could also decide to pause and wait, and then we could come back to it at another time. So that's at the board's discretion.
What do the committee's members recommend?
Well, I definitely think we need to move forward. I mean, I think we need to get the ball rolling. It's going to take, what, a couple of years to complete the project, and the longer we wait, the longer it's going to be. And I know we need the housing.
So, John, what would the form of the motion look like if we were going to make one today? Are you recommending that we make a motion today?
We originally just listed it as a report and item information based upon the recommendation of the packet committee.
Okay.
We could certainly, the board could make a motion for this committee to come back together or actually maybe the best to Margaret and Carl and Frank who are on the committee. The smartest next step may be to come back with formal next steps that are a little deeper than what Barbara's presented tonight, and then come to the board in the January 11th meeting for a formal vote to press ahead. So it's probably in our best interest to have a few more concrete details out in front of the board first.
I will defer to the committee members in terms of how we proceed on this. So if you...
I think we need to move forward, because by the time we get any property in Roanoke Island, it could be it would be 2 or 3. If it's going to take 2 years just to build 8 units.
So, Margaret, are you suggesting we do that today in the board?
I think what John suggested, that we might have a little bit more concrete.
Okay.
I'm just worried that Roanoke Island could take so long.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
In the
But
meantime-
like I said, I'm deferring to you guys because you have the
Is that good for
expertise in
you?
this, the information and knowledge.
I just want to also point out on the timeline that there would be an opportunity for Board of Education approval, obviously, to any decision with those more enhanced details on the financial loan, the construction costs, all of those pieces, and as well to the Dare Education Foundation Board, which would need to review it as well.
Okay.
Like I said, I'll defer to the committee members, so whenever they're willing to step forward and make that motion, we'll address it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Any other
Barbara.
questions from board members?
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Bench.
Thank you to Barbara and her moral support guy. Thank you. Next, we'll have an update on the Manteo High School field house by Dr. Farley and Director of Facilities, Mr. Russ Gerganis.
So Mr. Gerganis is our facilities director, who does an outstanding job for the public. We have a 5-year capital improvement plan. It's generally, it's funded 5 years in advance. We generally have somewhere between $1.3 and $1.5 million, depending upon the year for projects. And Mr. Gerganis has a running prioritized list, school by school, of needs over a 5-year period. And these are generally large projects, such as roofs, chillers, or in this case, the Manteo High School field house. We've got a lot of excitement with the school and the athletic program about this project, and we asked Russ to come in tonight to give an update. Russ?
All right, well, my presentation is very short. I won't keep you long, but considering we're at Manteo High School, I felt like, and Dr. Farley felt like it was a good time, and the CIP committee to give you a little update of where we're at. As Dr. Farley mentioned, these are big, large projects in the capital improvement plan, and sometimes they take a long time to put together and go through the proper steps. This was a funded project in the 2019-2020 CIP plan. Yes, it's 2 years old, but we just finished the last project last week of rebuilding Cape Hatteras Secondary School after the hurricane. So there's been a lot of major focus with a lot of construction down there. And to add, and just to inform the board, this has also been a 2-year process with getting the proper conditional use permits updated with the town of Manteo, the town where we operate underneath their guidelines. So there was a future field house already on the plan, but we had to go through the steps and processes and give them an idea of how we're going to handle all the electrical, sewer, and water associated with the building. This also had to go through a design to fit the budget that the county put together. Unfortunately, everybody knows construction costs are at an all-time high, so we've designed this building with that in mind, and the idea is a field house. We got big old football players bigger than me going in there every day, so If you're not aware where the current field house is for the football team, it's under the bleachers. There's no way for us to get in there and make repairs for leaks. That trickles down into all their equipment. We've had equipment get ruined. So with a good foresight and CIP plan, it's time to break ground and get something started out here. So hopefully the school, which we brought the school in and Mr. Luciano into this, and give them some input, but also try to see what meets their needs, but look at it from a facility standpoint of why we can't put it in certain locations. So the first thing is the location. If you can see there to the left-hand side of the gymnasium, which is right outside this door here, is where the field house is going to be going. There was a basketball court that we just had recently demoed as part of the first step project to get this project going. The reason for this location, the school, we went back and forth with the school, but this is the only place where we can keep it out of the floodplain, number one. All the utilities, sewer, electrical, and water run right outside this building. So all these things have been put into a cost analysis to try to keep it in the budget, and this is ultimately where we landed for the location. This is a floor plan. We've got a brand new locker room, large area for concessions, coach's office, changing room for officials, and concessions. Concessions are run out of what they call the teepee in the back, and we've had issues with the power going out, the athletic department losing a lot of the food that's in storage, and something that I felt was a need, and I think the school felt, maybe the community, is the need for public restrooms. On football games here at Manteo High School, we've had to bring in porta-johns to accommodate the capacity, the attendance here at the games, and this will address that need with public bathrooms. So the next plan is the design. This is what we come to, and I just want to acknowledge Mr. Ben Cahoon on this. I think everybody in the community knows Mr. Ben Cahoon, and he's the one that's made this possible. There's a lot of fees there that have not been paid out because of Mr. Ben Cahoon. So I want to just thank him for that. And he is not here tonight. I do not see him. But if you see him, say thanks. He's been the one to really get this ball rolling. He met with us from the start. We threw the ideas on the table, and he's made it come to life with this design. So this is where we're at. Does the board have any questions?
Any questions?
So with the concession stand now, that building will you do anything to that building?
Ma'am?
Where the concession stands are now?
Yeah,
So you're moving the concessions to the new building?
We're just providing a bigger place for concessions to hold more people. That concessions can stay. It's really on the softball building. So there's small little bathrooms there, and concessions are served out.
And that will stay?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. It'll also give the opportunity for us to renovate that and take the load off of that as time progresses in our budget. So,
Russ, thank you for your report. I will say that's a beautiful building, and can't wait to have it up and running and on the campus here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Next, we will receive a COVID-19 update from Dr. Davies, Director of Health and Human Services for Dare County.
Good evening, Chairman, Board. Welcome, or thank you for welcoming me here this evening. Just going to share with you the current COVID data in Dare County and then be available for questions that you may have. So we'll look at Dare County data, school data, state, national picture, and the vaccine data. So this is today's dashboard, just with our case count. Really, I think the probably biggest active thing to look at is our daily active case rate. 129 active cases as of today, 11 hospitalizations. Kind of an overview of what we're seeing in Dare County, and you'll see also it's the same thing across the state and nation. We are seeing the start of a trend upward. This is to be expected. We saw this certainly this time last year with more gatherings indoor with the weather, more people in close contact. Cases are increasing. In the past week, we had 139 new positive cases. 123 of those were residents and 16 were non-residents. Just yesterday, 27 new cases, 23 residents, 4 non-residents. And as I just mentioned, as of today, 129 active residents. 33 of the 129 active cases are Dare County students and 4 are staff. That varies slightly than what you'll see on today's dashboard because the 40 number represents the staff. The difference between the 39 and the 40 are 7 students who are excluded due to symptoms. They don't yet have a positive test, but following the protocol, they're excluded until they have either an alternative diagnosis or a negative COVID test, or they remain out. So that's the difference in between what you're seeing in the dashboard and the positive case counts. That's a picture of today's COVID dashboard in the school. This next slide, and I shared this with you in the information I provided earlier today, is the overall count of, graphical representation of the active case counts and quarantine counts for the school year through last Friday. So as I mentioned, what we're seeing in Dare County is what we're seeing across the state and across the nation. This graph is from the Vidant Health System that looks at the total test and the percent positivity. Interestingly, one of the things that we're seeing with COVID-19 is a little bit of a cyclical nature of 90-day peaks and valleys. And the indication is, looking at the far right, is that we're starting to see the peak that likely could take us December, January, and February, that 90-day time period. That would be consistent with what we saw last year as well. This data, because there's certainly a lot of information out there about variants. This chart is from Vidant Health System. And sorry, it looks a little different there than on here, about the sequencing that happens that's done with positive COVID cases. So not every positive test is sequenced. It's a random sample of positive specimens that are sequenced either at Vidant Medical or also the state lab. Over the past 19 weeks, 100% of what they've seen that they have sequenced at Vidant Medical has been the Delta variant. So now there's concern about the Omicron variant. We just don't have enough information about that variant at this point. But still, what we're seeing in our community, what we're seeing across the eastern region of the state is the Delta variant. Just quickly want to share that we are seeing, you've seen it, or you probably have heard about it in the schools and in the community. We're starting to see an increase in influenza. It's seasonal flu time, so that's to be expected as well. Though we did not see that last season. In fact, reports both at Vidant Medical Center out of Greenville and the Outer Banks Hospital here locally, they've seen more flu already than they saw all of last flu season. So just, oops, excuse me. I'm going the wrong way. Does this go back? There we go. Thank you. So, one of the things, though, is that the tests that are out there are specific for whether you're testing for influenza. If you go get a PCR panel now at the urgent care center, at the hospital, it's going to differentiate whether it's COVID, whether it's flu A, flu B, RSV. Those tests that's what they're doing as a standard respiratory workup and protocol now. But you're starting to see it in the school, and we're seeing it in the community. I want to run through, just as a refresher and requirement, where we are with state guidance related to isolation and quarantine, the CDC and state guidance. There haven't been any changes since the last 2 meetings that you all have had. For a positive case, isolation is required for 10 days. That 10-day period starts from either your onset of symptoms, or if you are an asymptomatic positive, it starts from the test date. The quarantine information also has not changed. I thought it was important to go back through, though, and just reiterate there are 4 exceptions to quarantine. First off, quarantine by definition is required, or by protocol is required for individuals who are identified as a direct contact. A direct contact is anyone who has been 6 feet or less for 15 minutes or greater to a positive laboratory confirmed case. If you're identified as a direct contact, you can be exempt from that quarantine requirement with one of these 4 exceptions. The first is any individual who is fully vaccinated. The definition of fully vaccinated is 2 weeks post your second dose of an mRNA vaccine, which is either the Pfizer or Moderna, or 2 weeks past your single dose of the J&J. While boosters are recommended now for anyone whose vaccine, if it's been 6 months since the mRNA vaccine or 2 months since the J&J, boosters do not factor into whether you're classified as fully vaccinated or not. So you can be exempt if you're fully vaccinated and you don't have symptoms. The recommendation, if you are an exposed vaccinated contact, though, is that you do get tested 3 to 5 days from that last date of exposure and wear a mask while you're waiting for that negative result. The second exception for quarantine is people who have tested positive for COVID-19 within the past 3 months and have recovered and are not showing symptoms. The third exception is people who have a positive antibody test within the past 3 months of exposure and do not have any symptoms. And then the fourth exception, which is specific, the others are for the community, the fourth one is specific to the school setting, is students and staff who are not fully vaccinated after close contact can be exempt if masks are worn appropriately and consistently by both the person that's positive for COVID-19 and the potentially exposed person. And that's one of the reasons you have seen the numbers of quarantine so low, is related to being able to have that exclusion in place currently. I think it's important to stress that local public health doesn't create this guidance. It's issued by the CDC and N.C.G.S, and under statutory requirements, it's my job to have our team enforce this guidance. Also want to share the current CDC and N.C.G.S quarantine requirements. Again, no changes here since your last meetings. The standard quarantine period is 14 days. However, there are 2 alternatives for an early release from quarantine. Those are being utilized in the school and have been since October. The first alternative is 10 days have passed since the last date of exposure and the individual is not showing any symptoms. Another option, the earliest option, is 7 days have passed since the last date of exposure. There are no symptoms and the individual had a negative test no sooner than 5 days from that last date of exposure. On day 8, they can be released from quarantine. If the quarantine is discontinued prior to day 14, masks are to be worn through the full 14 days from date of exposure. Again, no change there. Wanted to just provide a snapshot of where we are as a county regarding vaccinations. There have been 27, this is through Sunday, 27,046 initial doses, which is 73% of our population. 26,018, or 70% of our population, is fully vaccinated. As I indicated, I mentioned a few minutes ago, boosters are recommended now for anyone who received their mRNA vaccine at least 6 months ago, or your J&J at least 2 months ago. And that's because the data is showing that the immunity in the vaccination does start waning after those time periods. Currently, as far as there were questions, what specifically are vaccination numbers for our pediatric or our youth, specifically our school-age youth, 424 children between the ages of 5 and 11 have been vaccinated. That's 16%. 1,154 youth between the ages of 12 and 17 have been vaccinated, and that's 43%. Also, 804 out of the 1148 Dare County staff have been vaccinated, which represents just roughly 70%. So that's the information I have for you this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
There were a number of questions posed by board members to you, and I'm going to ask the board members if there are any follow-up questions to those answers that they got or questions that they have still lingering.
I have a question, and I want to thank you for, I know I threw a lot of questions at you, but I appreciate you taking the time to answer them so last minute. The one question about asking the state for guidance on considering our transient population, and I understand that you guys have requested that they add metrics to include the hospitalization, and do they give you a reason as to why those numbers aren't being considered? Why they're not using those numbers that you guys, that the local health directors have asked for?
Well, the response right now is they are in discussions at looking at revising the metrics. They think this isn't the right time yet. They're waiting to see what happens. Two things: one, with the next 3 months, and also with the Omicron variant. But they are listening. We had a meeting today, an update meeting today. They acknowledged that they have had meetings recently with the CDC. Didn't have any outcome of those meetings, but those discussions are happening.
Dr.
Any other
Davies,
questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for coming today and answering questions, and I'm sorry for doing that. On the categories for blue, red, orange, whatever, because of how you have these numbers, it's not you, whatever the state has decided our categories are, is it even possible for us to get out of the red with the number?
Yes, it is possible. Based on these same calculations, if you look at the chart, and I can send that, I didn't send that to you today, but I can send you the weekly numbers back from March of 2020. There were plenty of times that we would not have been in the red or even the orange. I think these metrics to get into the blue is completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
So, yes. And again, as I indicated in here, there are certainly some concerns with this, especially as time has evolved. These metrics have yet to change, and there's lots of variables that have changed. For example, home testing now is part of this. Well, home testing is not reflected in your percent positivity, and it's not reflected in your case rate because they're not reportable. So these metrics are, in my opinion, becoming obsolete because of that. And that's why, as I indicated in the information I shared with you all today, local health directors across the state have been pushing the state to have these conversations to revise these metrics. We're encouraging looking at hospitalizations, looking at the death rate, but also looking at protective factors in your community, like your vaccination percentage, which fortunately in Dare County is really strong.
Could you go back to that slide where it had the CDC and local protocol for quarantining?
Keith, you're running that?
Right. Now, it's my recollection, you all made that change in October of 2021, is that correct?
The state, yes, I sent a memo on October 5th about that change.
Okay. Now, as I recall, the CDC itself made that change in December of 2020 in the protocol.
They did, and the North Carolina Safe School Toolkit, or Strong School Toolkit, did not have that exception in there. I have an email on August 31st that I sent to the state saying, can't we do this? Do we have to? They responded that said, nope, social distancing is still one of these requirements to shorten quarantine. On October 5th, I was in a meeting, they changed that, and I immediately notified the superintendent.
So it's kind of interesting to me. On the one hand, we're supposed to be following CDC protocol, and then on the other hand, when the CDC comes up with a protocol, we're not following it. And I'm not blaming your department.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, it looks like it's a state issue.
Right. The way it trickles down to us, it starts with the CDC, then the
Right.
state takes that, and then they issue our guidance. So, correct. Most of the time, it's congruent, but sometimes it's not.
Well, that's a 10-month window, approximately a 10-month window before we caught up to what the CDC had been advocating for as far as the quarantining. I just find it a little bit, that the state would drag its feet for 10 months. But
Well, I think what we heard from the state in all of our meetings is they were doing investigations. They're running data within schools. They have a collaborative that's doing studies, and so they were waiting for the science to back this up. And that's when in October, that was the notification was based on the lower levels of risk of transmission at 10 days. They changed that guidance.
anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have another question. When we were talking about the vaccinations, and you said that the data has shown with the Pfizer or the mRNA, after 6 months that it's waning. J&J is after 2. So if you're vaccinated with one of those and you're past that time, the 90 days or the 2 months, I'm sorry, the 6 months or the 2 months, would you still be considered fully vaccinated and not be quarantined?
At this time, they're still considered. Because it's not that you have no protection. It's just that it's not as, you don't have, as they're indicating, you don't have as much immunity as you did when you were within that 6-month window for the mRNA. So at this time, they're not requiring a booster to consider you fully vaccinated.
Sheila, the information that you recited is according to whom? With the vaccinations and that you still have some protection.
CDC. This is the CDC and N.C.G.S.
Sheila, one more question. I know you're probably tired of hearing this question, but it seems a little confusing to me. When we were talking about the positive antibody test, after 3 months, you get that, you're good. But what about the people that can test positive past 3 months, 6 months, 9 months?
Sure.
Will that same test allow them the same ability to say that I'm not as big a risk?
So if you're using if you're going to use a positive antibody test as part of an exemption from quarantine, that test needs to be within 90 days of your exposure date. So if you had a test, and let's say now we're 120 days, you could go get another test, and if you're still positive, you would be, if that antibody test is still positive, you could be excluded from quarantine. So it just may require more than one test depending on the duration. Because it could, we don't know. We truly don't know how long you're going to have that immunity after a positive infection, and it varies person to person. We've had some people that test positive 8, 9 weeks later, and we've had some that after 4 weeks they're not testing. So it just depends on the viral fragments that are in your system.
Okay, I think I heard something a little different that time, is that if you do get tested down the road past the 3 months, and you do continue to have the antibodies test, that shows you have the antibodies, that's just as good as if it was 3 months after the test, or after having COVID and recovered.
Make sure I'm following you correctly.
Okay, let's say that you had COVID, you recovered, you've gone 3 months, and let's say you've gone 6 months, and someone's concerned that you may or may not have COVID, or if you still have the antibodies. So now you go and get a test, and that test, well past the 3 months, past 6 months or whatever, still shows that you have the antibodies. That test on that date that you can show, that puts you in the category that shows that you do have protection, just as if if you get the vaccine or something like that.
Correct. We are on the same page. What you link together at that point is the date of the test and that date of exposure. So if those are within 3 months, even if it was beyond when your initial infection date was, that's okay. The other key to that is you have to be symptom-free, because that way we, to know that it's not a new infection. We are having people that are unfortunately getting COVID a second time around. So, but if you are asymptomatic and you went and got another test and it's beyond the 90 days from your initial positive case, that's okay.
Any other questions?
So you're saying that you have had breakthrough cases from people that have recovered?
Yes.
Do you know how you don't have an idea of how many?
Well, so we've had repeat infections from unvaccinated, and we've had some handful from vaccinated. Much lower number, but that's because also your whole denominator's different. 80% of the 80% of the cases that we're seeing are unvaccinated.
Given what you know, what's been described, are we in a state of having to get perpetual shots for this virus?
I don't know. Right now, a booster is absolutely recommended, yes.
Right now, we're in a booster stage.
We are in a booster stage, but I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what the developments will be on that, but certainly right now, yes.
Yeah, I know I'm asking the question from somebody that's smarter than I am in this area, so bear with me, but it seems like next year comes along, potential for another booster shot, the next year comes along.
Right. And it could be. That's what happens with flu.
Right,
you have an annual flu shot, but I just don't know.
Right.
I don't think they know yet, the scientists that are working on that part of it.
I understand. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Davies, Dr. Davies, for your report.
Certainly.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, too.
All right. Now, the next item on the agenda is unfinished business. And as I've been told on the script here, there are no items listed under this agenda. So the new business will be, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Kinsel for presenting policy 4231/5021/7263, face coverings for modification consideration.
Good evening.
Did I say that
Mr.
correctly?
Chair, you said it beautifully. Thank you so much. And good evening. As the chairman has articulated, we're here for our monthly review of the face coverings policy, and per Session Law 2021-130, every month during the 21-22 school year, the board is required to review this policy and make a decision whether modifications to the policy are in order. So without further ado, I will turn it back over to the chairman.
It's my lucky day.
We are recommending that there be no modifications at this time, but it is at the board's pleasure.
I appreciate that opinion. As required by Session Law 2021-130, we need to vote on whether or not policy 4231/5021/7263, face covering, should be modified. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to ask a question, Sandy, on the current, where we have right now, how many cases we have right now in school. If we were unmasked, what would that equate to in quarantines? Do you have an estimate of what that would equate to in quarantine?
It would just be a guess at this point. I think Dr. Davies shared with you data that showed where our quarantines went at the beginning of the year when we were on an optional mask protocol. It's hard to say, though, because she's also shared with you there's quite a considerable difference in the number of students and staff members that have been vaccinated. And so we have those kinds of protocols in place. Again, it would be simply a guess. I can tell you from today, just this week alone, which would be about 2 weeks after the holiday ended for Thanksgiving, that yesterday probably our highest number of reported positives. We had 18. As a result of 18 positives, we had relatively few quarantines because of the mask-on-mask protocol that allows for exclusion. I'm sorry. Yes, I do. Yes, so part of that is in there as well. Yes, and she also provided you with the daily accounting for that. So I can't answer that definitively, but again, just looking at patterns as presented.
Well, and to be clear, I don't necessarily believe we're masking to prevent COVID. I feel like we're masking to prevent quarantines, which is a disruption for the teachers and a disruption for the students. But I do believe that we are masking to prevent quarantine, which is a disruption to schools.
Do you have a motion to either modify or keep intact?
I do. I move that we not make any modifications to policy 4231, 5021, 7263.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I think Ms. Balance's statement was correct in that we're here for the kids to be in school. And if they're going to be quarantined, they won't be in school. And then we start this whole process all over again. Just my opinion.
Okay, anybody else want to be heard?
Yes, as much as I'd like for these masks to be off our staff and students, I really would love for them to be off. But I don't want to see our kids not in these classrooms. And what we've seen today, you know, it has been struggling for the students and staff. But they were in that classroom today learning what the teachers were giving them on hand. And I'm sure that Dr. Farley is going to give us a report here shortly about our virtual school learning. And I don't think we're going to be very happy with some of the information he's going to be sharing with us on virtual learning. So if it's got to keep these kids in school, I've got to vote for it.
Wait, hold on, ma'am. Hold on, please. Ma'am, Ms. Kinsel, I have a question for you. Somebody asked you for a prediction about the quarantining and so on and so forth. So do you have a prediction in terms of when we can finally get to a point where we don't have to wear masks or make masks optional?
And I'll be honest, I'm not qualified to make that decision either.
In fairness, that's a Dr. Davies question, not a Sandy Kinsel question.
I'm sorry?
That's a Dr. Davies question.
You're
Look
probably
at transmission
right.
rates versus Ms. Kinsel.
You're definitely right. I only asked in light of Ms. Bounce's question. So if there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor of the motion by Ms. Lawler, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Opposed. So apparently it is 5-2 to keep the current policy in effect. The next item on the agenda is N.C.G.S. Virtual School by Dr. Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as the board knows, during the pandemic, we've had a virtual school opportunity for students. During the previous school year, we had upwards of 1,100 kids who attended virtual school. In the current school year, we've had somewhere between 270 and 280 since August. Of the 280 students, about 75 of those students are at the elementary level. So roughly 200 kids, 612, have been in the virtual school. So the instructional model has been a little different for K-5 versus 612. In 612, we have had one teacher in each subject area, the 4 primary in 612 who have had oversight of the learning management systems, had open office hours with students, check grades, attendance, and then each 612 school has had a facilitator who also has had oversight of attendance and grades. K-5 has been, as the board is aware, in an informal report I put together for the board, the elementary schools in total have somewhere between 9 and about 19 kids per school who are virtual. And so we have a smattering of about 30 teachers, K-5, throughout the district who are serving those students. Those are volunteer teachers who have stepped up, and they're serving anywhere typically between 2 and 4 students virtually. During planning periods, after school, certain parts of their schedule, our reading and math interventionists have done a significant amount of the work with the live meets. What we've provided students this year has not been the comprehensive amount of time in live meetings we were able to provide students last year, and as you recall, we set all that up front. I would recommend that the board make a decision about the virtual school for second semester this evening. If we push it to the January 11th meeting, it's getting too close to the start of second semester, and parents need to know, kids need to know, and we intend to make some adjustments if the board wants to continue with the virtual program and how we're serving kids. So the adjustments we would recommend would be the 612 model will stay very similar to what it is. K-5, because we're only serving upwards of 18 or 19 kids in a school, instead of having a large array of teachers who are getting stretched, and there's about 30 or 35 elementary teachers, would be to have a district level teacher, a district teacher who's K, a district teacher who's first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And based upon the number of students in that 9 to 19 range, we feel like we could have, we won't be stretching as many teachers. The teachers that would take on these roles, if the board wants to move forward, would be volunteers, and we would make arrangements to look at their schedules, whether it's planning time, during intervention time, after school, to make some adjustments in their duties so that they can kind of balance teaching virtually and face-to-face. And we would start with a volunteer process with that. This is a very hard decision for us. So our principals, assistant principals, directors have met 2 or 3 long meetings about our recommendation. And honestly, we feel like the best way kids can learn is to be in our schools. We know that. And so the struggle for us is we want kids back in our buildings, particularly students, some who've not had face-to-face instruction in 16, 18 months. At the same time, we also know we're serving a community need and trying to address the best we can to meet the needs of all 5,100 kids. So we've had a lot of healthy debate about adjustments, about recommendations. We can't all agree collectively with the 40 administrators on the best path, but 70% of us feel like we should push on with still offering it in second semester with some adjustments. So our recommendation would be that we would change the staffing pattern. We want to put some accountability in for kids who are in grades 6 through 12. So if the board wants to offer virtual second semester, we're recommending that any student who is failing more than 2 classes by the end of first semester not be allowed to continue in virtual. And that way we could get those kids back in school and we could provide them with intervention and more face-to-face instruction. With the end of first semester being August, it's getting late. January 21st, that still gives kids about a month to complete their coursework. We've got letters that are prepped, ready to go home tomorrow to elementary and 612 students. If the board approves virtual for second semester that are kind of like an at-risk letter of concern about where kids are academically. And if 612 students need additional support, we intend to provide that between now and the end of first semester to try to get them over the hump. And then this is the time of year we're not into retaining children, and that's not something that we want to have to consider, and it's honestly not a really good practice for K-12 public schools past really the first grade, if you look at a long array of data around that. But this is the time of year where if students are failing multiple courses, that we do communicate with parents that we're concerned. So that's not a mandate, that's not a referendum. You can make the case that we've got hundreds of kids who were behind grade level, and we're not in the business of retaining kids. Our business is in we want every kid in school. The best way that we can close the gaps is when they're face-to-face with our teachers. And so it's a struggle to think about 280 kids who are not in our buildings. We also know we have families who have the need, whatever the reasons may be. And we think if we put some accountability measures in with the passing, that we will get more kids who will come back, and also get them in a position where they're cutting down on the number of classes where they're struggling. Kind of changes daily. I would say 612, we probably have about a third to 40% of the kids who are failing at least one course. The courses are self-paced. The online facilitators, in teacher world, the frustration is twofold. And this is after spending 3 weeks in every single school and being face-to-face with teachers and talking specifically about this. Teachers are concerned about getting stretched, which we're trying to adjust in staffing. And then there's also a frustration. Teachers are taking time out of their schedule, K-5, to work with kids in face-to-face delivery or virtual meets, and kids don't show up. And then on the 612 end, we do know some of this is convenience for some kids, particularly 912. What kind of works against us is we have a long history of providing a lot of online coursework, whether it's dual enrollment, through COA, Apex, virtual public schools. And so we're kind of built 912, where a lot of kids are already taking those courses, but a lot of kids are struggling. So it's kind of a heart-wrenching decision, but we are recommending that we continue for this last semester only. June is the end of virtual offerings in Dare County schools, but also with the requirements that no one who's currently not in virtual, so anyone who's in the traditional setting cannot enter into virtual. Anyone who is interested in that, coming out of the August 5th meeting, where we started with parental choice, had that option. We're also recommending that we do have some parents, particularly elementary, who want to come back. And originally we said end of semester, and we don't see any reason why parents who want to come out of virtual to come back face-to-face can do that January 3rd, so right after the break. And we may have some kids 612 who want to come back, but they would have to wait till the semester ends on the 21st. We think the accountability measures make us feel like we're taking some steps in the right direction. And if you have a child who is failing more than 2 classes, they need to be in school. We think that's fair. So that's our recommendation, is to continue. I certainly can respect, I know we all have healthy a debate about this, and certainly our 40 administrators have done as well. So, but we're recommending to continue. K-5 coming back January 3rd for those that want to. Any 612 student who's failing more than 2 classes has to return to the traditional school setting by January 26th. And current students who are in traditional will not be allowed to enter.
I have a couple questions. We did receive some feedback from some of the teachers in the K-5 5 who are doing both. Can you explain a little bit more about, so if you're dedicating one teacher across the district per grade, will that teacher also be in school and have to be teaching in front of a classroom as well?
Yes, so we don't have the staff to dedicate, like we did last year, someone who's solely teaching virtual, okay? So it depends upon the position. It also depends upon, keep in mind, teachers are in various places. Obviously, we've had to really raise the bar in instructional delivery through virtual. We have, it's like life. You have great employees who can do this really well, and you've got some who struggle doing other. So we have a lot of teachers who like teaching virtually, who like creating lessons and delivering content that way. So it's not going to be a specific position that we would point to. It certainly could be someone, so the flexibility with scheduling, although they serve a lot of students, could be a Title I teacher, could be a math or reading interventionist, could be an instructional coach. What we're willing to concede is also, it doesn't necessarily have to be between 8 and 2:30 or 8 and 3, and that we may have to set up meeting structures between like 3 and 3:30, 3 and 4 o'clock for K-5. So we think we'll get enough interest from staff who would be interested in taking on these roles. I do think that, and we've looked at various staffing models, there's no way we could pull someone who would solely be teaching virtual.
Right.
And the only way you actually could do that is instead of having 6, so K-5, 6 individuals,
Right.
might be have 2, but then you get into certification areas and an inability to, you're going to get stretched. So we feel better about someone who is in that particular grade level, taking that responsibility and being willing. And honestly, if we we do have, I think there's at least 12 or 14 students that we've talked about with principals in the last 2 weeks who want to come back. So that 75 might be 50, and then we're talking about this, or at least minimum of 6, maximum of 60. So we're talking, the smaller numbers, the more likely that we're going to be able to serve those kids better in this model.
So in teacher assistants, do 4th and 5th grade teachers have a teacher assistant?
Do 4th and 5th grade? No. They're teachers.
If there's a teacher that's willing to do this virtual, is it possible to assign them a teacher assistant to help them with the load on the 3rd and 5th?
No.
3rd, 4th, 5th?
No. Teacher assistants in the state of North Carolina have been cut dramatically, particularly in the last 12 to 14 years. When I first got here 20 some odd years ago, it was K3. Then I went to K2. Then you split. And now it's only K1. So, we don't have an endless vault of allotments for positions.
But for a short period of time, could it come out of
We'd get a heavy argument from our elementary principals and elementary teachers that we're teaching reading to kids, trying to teach kids how to read in K1 and 2. And so we wouldn't prefer to pull assistants who are working with kids in literacy groups to go step into a kind of a quasi-substitute position in 4th and 5th grade. We'd rather be creative in looking at planning and right after school opportunities versus other.
Okay.
Dr. Farley?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Are you hoping that you can get 6 different teachers, K through 5, to teach all the kids that are virtual?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
One, okay. But would that teacher, I know you've said it, but just to make it clear, if I'm teaching 2nd grade and I say I'll teach 10 2nd graders, do I still teach children in my classroom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Also keep in mind that we're setting up the learning management systems. So there's an opportunity, so we're already loading those. So those are happening in many of our classrooms, K-12 anyways, so that the platforms are set. We're not doing the face-to-face live meetings every day, or it depends on the teacher and the grade level last year. We had some teachers who did 4 or 5 live meets, 1 per day last year. We did not have an ability to offer that this year. So we're talking about a couple of days a week. So it's not someone who's going to have to do live meets 5 days a week for 8 kids.
But your reading math interventionists would be available to help those teachers as well?
Yes. And they may be still one of those 6.
Okay. So these 6 are all volunteers. Is there any additional compensation that
Yes.
they may be able to get?
Yes.
Okay.
We can use ESSER funding to provide them with additional compensation, yes.
Okay.
But it's strictly volunteer across the district.
It would be volunteer with a little recruitment,
Yep, I get that.
but we
Look,
would start
I-
with,
you
we
know-
would start with volunteers.
We've asked a lot of our teachers in the last, and of our parents. But as my father-in-law always says, I hope it won't be as long as it has been. But I appreciate all their hard work and everything that they've sacrificed to continue to provide for our students. That being said, for those that, that are currently enrolled and want to continue that through the school year, I'm in favor of the virtual option. And I know that's a huge ask of our teachers. It does not fall on deaf ears. I know it's an extreme ask, but, it's our kids.
Anything else? So the proposal basically is an effort to cut down the staffing needs for the virtual side of the house, is that correct?
So from a staffing standpoint, yes.
Okay. So in other words, instead of having a third grade teacher within the First Fight Elementary School teaching virtual, you might have somebody teaching third grade classes to district-wide. Is that what the proposal was intended to do?
A third grade teacher who's in Kitty Hawk would teach third grade students from
Outside, yeah.
N.C.G.S. to Hatters.
Okay.
Or Kitty Hawk to Hatters.
And the other question I have for Richard is a legal question. I agree with John, in terms of failing 2 or more classes. Is that what it is? Okay. Do we have the legal authority to pull those kids into school?
Yes, you do.
We do. Under what authority?
You can just assign them. It's like assigning them to a school. So in effect, it's an involuntary transfer, but you have the authority to do that. And you can also set requirements for continuing the virtual school. So this is a legitimate requirement for continuing the virtual. Just to be clear, the recommendation is failing 2 classes
If
or
you
more
fail
than
2 classes, if you're failing 2 classes, if you have failed 2 classes at the end of first semester.
Okay, I think the written recommendation says failing more than 2 classes. So
No.
should that be changed?
2.
Okay.
Anyone who's failing 2 classes on January 21st at the end of first semester would be required to return to the traditional setting.
Okay, so this written recommendation should be modified?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not more than 2, it's 2.
Yeah, we've gone through a couple iterations of that.
Okay.
I think this requires, does it require a motion?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I move we continue the DCS virtual school for the remainder of the 2021-2022 academic year and under the following requirements. Any K-5 student who is currently in the virtual program can return to the traditional setting beginning on January 3rd. Any virtual 612 student who is failing 2 or more classes at the end of the first semester must return to the traditional school setting beginning on January 26, 2022. Current students in the traditional school program will not be allowed to register for virtual school.
Second.
Let me just go back to it. The language I have here, and it might be different than what you just read. It said any virtual 6 to 12 student who's failing more than 2 classes?
I'm saying any
It's just 2
virtual
classes.
6-12
classes.
student
2
who is
classes.
failing 2 or more classes.
Okay,
2 classes.
gotcha. Okay. All right. Is there a second?
I said.
You had a second.
Okay, second by Ms. Lawler. All those in, any discussion?
I have a discussion. In that second scenario, the virtual student, if they get their grades back, do they have the opportunity to go back to virtual? Or once they, okay. Just wanna make
Once
sure.
you start second semester, whether you're in traditional or virtual, you see it through. It's too complicated with schedules to go back and forth. So there's no way that we talked about scenarios. What if I start into virtual second semester because my grades are there and then I'm starting to fail too? Am I coming back to traditional. We can't do that with scheduling. It's
Right.
impossible.
I just want to make sure we ask
Sure.
the question now because we know it's coming.
Yep.
Any more discussion?
One other point I'd like to have Mr. Schwartz speak to. So let's say someone is in a virtual program, they have been in the virtual program, they're failing 2 classes end of the first semester, yet parents are going to refuse to send their child to school. Are we then talking about the compulsory
Then
attendance
it's a
law?
compulsory attendance
Right.
violation.
That's kind of where I was getting at.
Yeah.
I got another question. For 612 students, can they opt to come back into school on January 26th?
Yes. Who are virtual?
Yeah, who are virtual now that want to come back to traditional?
Yes.
Okay, well, the second one doesn't say that option in there. It just says if they're failing at the end of the first semester, they have to return. So maybe we want to put a statement in there saying that, K-12 students have an option to return back to the traditional setting on January 26th.
Yes. Good clarification. Agreed.
I'll amend my motion to include that. Do I need to state it again?
You'll amend your motion.
I will
to
amend my
include-
original motion to say any 612 student who wants to return to face-to-face may do so on January 26, 2022.
And Ms. Lawler, do you
I second.
agree with that second? Okay, you're good then.
Any further discussion? Call for a vote. Those in favor of the motion to continue virtual school, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes
Thank you.
unanimously, I might add. Next, Ms. Kinzel will present proposed changes to the 2021-2022 academic calendar. Ms. Kinzel,
Yes, sir.
fire away.
Thank you. Periodically, after the calendar has been established by a committee and put before the board, things arise that were unexpected and require us to come before you with modifications. In today's instance, the Board of Elections has requested the use of several of our school facilities as polling sites for the midterm primary elections. This is scheduled to occur on now May 17th, 2022. The optional workday has been added on that date to accommodate the request. And per your policy, the Board of Elections, pretty much, if they request it, we are going to allow them to have use of the facility if at all possible. Also, while we were making some modifications, another incident has come up where Dare County Schools elementary school teachers are being required to participate in training aligned with statewide Science of Reading, Literacy Initiative, and Read to Achieve. The training is, I believe, about 168 hours. Again, it must be completed by June. So in this particular calendar, what we're presenting and recommending is adding a required workday on January 25th, adding an optional workday on March 7th, shifting the required workday teacher conference day to March 8th so that we have some continuity in that week, and then convert an early dismissal day on March 25th, making that a required workday. So these proposed changes, especially those latter changes, would provide much needed time for our elementary teachers to be able to complete these requirements without having to do it outside of the work environment. So we are requesting that the board approve the calendar as described and recommended.
Is there a motion for proposed changes to the 2021-2022 academic calendar?
Excuse me, may I add?
Oh.
We would like this to be adopted on first read this evening so that we can get that out, if at all
Okay.
possible.
So we're going to make...
You don't need you don't need anything
you're right. I'm looking at the
to
wrong one.
approve this on first reading. It's just a
can
motion
just
to amend the
To
calendar.
approve it or not?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Anybody want to make a motion? Speak up.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the revised school calendar for the 2021-22 academic year on the first read as requested.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Bothwell?
You don't need it on the first reading. It's just
Okay.
as presented.
Any discussion?
Oh, I just wanted to say, Sandy, thank you. I know that working on the calendar is often very tricky, and you've had to amend it several times, and we appreciate that work that goes into that. I know there's a lot of juggling that goes on, and thank you for
You're
figuring
welcome.
all that out.
We get lots of input and help, so thank you.
The 168 hours that elementary teachers are going to be required training is the most significant amount of training I've seen in 23 years in North Carolina public schools. So on behalf of the elementary teachers, they're very thankful to have these opportunities so we can actually, they won't have to train after school. It is self-paced weekends. This will be able to put them in a position to put a big dent into it during these work days.
Mr. Chairman, you
Or
need a
take
second.
them- I'm sorry, or take
You
them
need
out
a
of the
second on the
classroom.
motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Susan,
I'm sorry, I keep hitting my microphone. Talking with my hands. I said it also prevents us from having to have the teachers come out with and putting a substitute, which is in short
Right.
supply. So to be able to make those work too. So I think this is probably the best option all the way around.
160 hours. Why did the state do that?
I'm sorry. No further discussion. I'll call for a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Joe?
Dr. Parker will present revised school improvement plans for 2021-2022.
Elementary and Secondary School Director Kelly Flora is joining me, and we would like to share some highlights and the revisions to the school improvement plan for each of the schools. These plans are a requirement for each North Carolina public school, and our school principal, along with a school improvement team at each school, has worked on these plans. Many of these schools have begun working on these plans over the summer, collecting a lot of data and feedback from teachers, stakeholders, parents, and looking at student performance data to help drive the goals for the school. And so we'd like to share some highlights of these plans with you and review some of those pieces. And then Kelly's going to come forward and talk a little bit about the process and explain exactly what the schools go through as they develop these plans. We'll share some highlights and then be more than glad to take any questions or comments from the board at that time. So, Kelly?
Good evening, Chairman Tauber, Vice Chairman Twitty, Board, Dr. Farley. I'm here tonight to talk briefly about our school improvement process and how that looks in elementary world, and Keith will, of course, describe how it looks in secondary. So each school, regardless, every school's different, the culture, the dynamics, but every school has the same goals in mind, and that's our staff and our students. And we must create a plan that reflects areas of strength and areas of need. So our school improvement team consists of a combination of stakeholders, teachers, classified staff, parents, and even in some circumstances, students. Schools conduct an annual needs assessment, so that's a reflective piece where they look at what's really going well, and then they look at areas where we could see growth and change. Goals are established with explicit pathways for improvement. So the team comes together, they identify the problems, and then they create different ways in which to solve those problems. They meet monthly to track progress and refine pathways, and all of our schools use the N.C.G.S platform, which allows all of our buildings to be aligned. So as far as our elementary goals, we had a lot of common threads this year. COVID did make an impact on learning, so a lot of our focus went into learning loss. The MTSS coordinator for elementary, Katie Sproul. Hey, Katie, I see you up there. She has come in to help with the tiered system approach, where we're looking at our Tier 1, which is for everyone, Tier 2, which is for those kids that aren't succeeding in the Tier 1 model. They get a little bit more support in a small group setting, and then we look at our Tier 3 interventions in which children get intensive support. Of course, we focus on data-driven instruction, so we're looking at our data constantly so that we can refine and individualize what each child needs to meet them where they are. We're also focusing on differentiated instruction and understanding that not all children need the same thing, that there are different levels. And we're also looking at differentiating assignments to meet those needs. In elementary world, we are moving into a lot of small group instruction in reading and math for all K-5 students. And of course, a continual goal that we will always have, parental involvement in communication and professional development for staff. Any questions about our elementary goals? All right, I'll turn it over to Keith so he can talk about secondary.
Thank you, Kelly. A couple of things I'll add on the secondary plans here. One point I do want to go back to that Kelly mentioned is each of our schools use a software program called the InduStar program, and that is a program provided by the Department of Public Instruction. And what it does is it allows schools to input their school improvement goals into the platform. And what's neat about that is it allows principals and teams to assign tasks to staff members, and they can come back into that program and track their performance toward the goals over a course of the year. They're also able to document their meetings and share meeting notes in that platform. Myself and Kelly have access to that as well as our other directors. We're able to give feedback on the plans and be able to really have some progress monitoring of the school's goal. That's a significant improvement from the internal documents that we previously used. Our previous documents were Word documents that we had drafted and provided to schools, and they, of course, were very thorough, but you know, a computer document doesn't have any of those features where you can track your progress, assign tasks, and be able to really monitor how the school is performing. So that's a platform that all of our schools use, and I think that really does give us a lot of consistency in how we're able to plan and implement the program. A couple highlights I'll make here. Professional development is a focus in a lot of our secondary schools. We're very excited, and the board was able to hear very eloquently and detailed from Mr. Luciano and team tonight about our AVID program, but that program exists in all of our middle and high schools. And so we took a year and a half ago, and by the way, let me just say this here. We do have Sarah Pritchard with us tonight, assistant principal here at Manteo High School, and Sarah is our district AVID coordinator. And she has done a phenomenal job in supporting our AVID teachers, and she's very well versed in the program, and in addition to her responsibilities here, she supports schools in the AVID program. And about a year and a half ago, Sarah and I met, and we really had some very positive, I think, brainstorming sessions. I was previously taught AVID myself when I was a classroom teacher, and we really wanted to see a way we could replicate our successes here at Manteo High Schools and each and every one of our other middle and high schools. And I firmly believe that this school is going to become an AVID demonstration school because of the work they do here. But I want to see every one of our middle and high schools become a demonstration school, because I do think the AVID program is hugely beneficial to students and can impact their ability for careers in colleges. So we've invested some time in all of our schools in AVID training, and we've selected teachers. We sent some teachers to some virtual trainings a year ago and over the summer. We're going to continue to do that. That's reflected in some of our school improvement plans, and each school has that focus. Another thing that we're focusing on is we have done quite a bit of work in the past 6 months, but really the past year, but specifically the past 6 months, on focusing on our curriculum needs in 612. Particularly our high school. If anybody in the room has had a high school student go through Dare County Schools, you know that we have a lot of programmatic features. Kids going into our high schools can choose to do a lot of things, and that's a really good thing, but we want to continue to strengthen our teachers' toolkits and give them resources where they can go really deep in curriculum, but we also want to be able to monitor and assess what kids are learning in all the programs we offer. And we have to build resources and assessment tools and tests to monitor that. And so our teachers in the secondary realm are focusing on building some of those assessments so we can really figure out what kids are learning, but importantly, figure out what they're not learning so we can intervene and help kids fill in some of the gaps that they might miss. And a couple other features that exist in some of our plans are just a general goal for us to continue to improve our communication, particularly how we communicate with parents. That exists in some of the plans, and then also a need for recruitment and retention. And certainly the stresses that our teachers have faced are not unique to Dare County. Teachers in the teaching profession over the past couple years really have been asked to do a lot, and we want to continue to think about staff morale, and we want to show our teachers how much we appreciate them, and our schools have reflected some of those needs in their school improvement plans. So that's an overview of the secondary. I'd certainly be glad to take any comments or questions from the board on the plans, the elementary plans, the process, or the secondary plans.
Keith, I'd like to say whoever chose this platform, it is the best school improvement plan I've ever read.
Thank you.
I like the highlight of what the problem is and then how you're going to solve it on every one. And I was just amazed that along with all what the principals do every day and the teachers do, what they plan to do in these to help the kids and just to further everything. They work very hard and do a lot. So
Thank you, Ms. Lawler.
Any other comments? Dr. Parker, I'm hoping that we can replicate the AVID program that we have here with our other school system, our schools, so that we can, the template's there.
I agree.
We just have to follow it and, build on it.
I agree.
Dr. Parker is requesting approval of the revised school improvement plans for 2021-2022. Do I hear a motion?
I motion we approve the revised school improvement plans for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Who?
I'll second.
Carl? We have a motion and a second to approve the revised school improvement plans for 2021-2022. Any discussion? Okay. Those in favor of approving the revised school improvement plans for 2021-2022, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley will provide information about a letter of support for the town of Kill Devil Hills drainage improvement grant application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Ben Sproul, the mayor of Kill Devil Hills, has requested a letter of support from the Dare County Board of Education for a FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant application. The town's project is called Wrightsville Goddard Interceptor and is an estimated $5.7 million drainage improvement project that's focused on several different areas that the board has seen in the your board packet. The district, led by Mr. Gerganis, has done a needs analysis and identified a high need for the school system in supporting this project. The town of Kill Devil Hills receives all of our stormwater, and there have been numerous flooding events on school properties. So from our vantage point, there's high need. Win-win for the town of Kill Devil Hills as well as the school system, and looking for the board to approve the letter of support from the chairman.
Do I hear a motion recommending or approving the grant application?
I'll do that. I move we approve the letter of support to the town of Kill Devil Hills drainage improvement grant application as requested.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Balance? We have a motion and a second to approve the letter of support for the town of Kill Devil Hills drainage improvement grant application. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor of approving the letter of support for the town of Kill Devil Hills drainage improvement grant application, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is proposed substitute teacher pay rate increase. Sandy?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Genzel?
We're going to bring it home. Here we come. going to bring it home.
I was going to bring a sleeping bag.
No. Obviously, the board has been made aware over the past several months of the shortage of the number of substitute teachers that we have that are willing and able to come in and fill in our schools. The pandemic has been hard for us, and I know that Dr. Farley has also received feedback in his visits to schools, talking with teachers, that's a serious concern. We're pulling teacher assistants, and we're sometimes having teachers cover other classes. So it's been a hardship for everyone. One thing that the board has been made aware of, and through several emails and letters, that something that would help is a higher rate of pay. So this evening we're presenting with both an increase in pay for the non-certified as well as the certified substitutes for the board to consider adopting. As Dr. Farley mentioned earlier, the state budget has put in a required increase for classified employees of $13 per hour, which will go into effect this year. And so we looked at that, as well as looking at the next phase of that being $15 an hour, and saying what would that do to the current rate for non-certified substitutes. So that allows us to meet compliance on two pieces, or two different parts, and then applying the percentage increase to the certified subs rate. So we're going to be kind of equal in how we're going to increase on both of these rates. So we're proposing that non-certified subs would go from $80 a day to $112 a day, and certified would go from $103 a day to $144 a day. And we are asking that the board adopt these rates through the end of the year, and then we will reconsider those rates as part of the annual budget process moving forward.
What's the effective date on this pay raise? Immediately?
Yes, we would ask you to adopt this, and we can put it into place immediately.
So anybody subbing starting tomorrow will get this rate?
Out of the new pay period, yes, it will.
Oh,
So
out of the next pay period.
That is tomorrow. If they start, okay.
From December 3rd forward. So some that have already subbed will get that.
So it'll be in the
prorated.
next pay period, which, according to
It'll be
Candy,
prorated,
has said
said-
started on December 3rd, correct?
So
January
the motion should be effective December 3rd then?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Through June 30th.
You good to go?
Effective
Ms.
December
Kinzel's
3rd.
Anybody else? Ms. Kinzel's recommending that the board adopt a revised substitute teacher daily rate of pay for the remainder of the 2021-22 school year, and to be effective immediately upon approval. I guess we're retroactively to...
We need
We're
to
making it
Effective
effective.
December 3rd.
Yeah, retroactively to December 3rd.
So I move we adopt the revised substitute teacher daily rate of pay for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year as requested, beginning December 3rd,
Second.
2021.
Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. By Ms. Bothwell. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I want to say a special thank you to all our subs. I tried to go around today and see all the ones at the schools that were currently subbing today, and I'm sure as all the board members do, just really appreciate all that they have done to get our students where they need to be when the teachers can't be in. So,
Slight modification request. It's actually December 4th. The pay period went to December 3rd.
sorry, I'll modify that to December 4th. Good catch.
Those in favor of adopting the revised substitute teacher daily rate of pay for the remainder, beginning December 4th, 2021, please say aye.
Aye. And that's for the remainder of the school year.
And for the remainder of the school, yes. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
And
Sandy,
finally,
you're up again.
And finally, okay.
Prevent revisions to policy 7510, employee leaves and absences.
Yes, so again, based on some feedback that the board has received, as well as Dr. Farley in some of his conversations out there, we are recommending a minor change, but one that will be a big win in the eyes of some of our staff members. There is a section in policy 7510 for employee leaves and absences, section H, that deals with discretionary leave of absence. In the policy, as it currently is written, there's a requirement for 60-day notice to request leave without pay. So what we felt like that was an appropriate amount of time to be able to plan for that, and again allow for staff to be able to plan when the calendars are adopted 2 years in advance. But again, we don't want to make hardships on folks, so 30 days is a recommendation that we're making to change it and reduce that hardship for making a notification if a leave of absence is necessary. So you will find that this is the policy that we would like for you to adopt on first read, as opposed to waiting through the second reading next month.
So, Rich, as I understand it, we don't have to do a motion to, we do?
You have to do a motion to waive the policy requiring 2 readings.
All right, do I hear a motion to waive the second reading of the revised policy
I
as
move
requested?
we waive the board's policy for second reading of revisions of policy 7510, employee leave and absences, and approve the revised policy on first read.
Is there a second?
It has to be 2 separate motions. The motion to waive policy is one motion. It
Right.
requires 2/3 vote.
Right. I mean, I just made the motion to revise, right?
No, you need a motion to waive the policy first, and then a second motion to approve it.
That's what isn't that what I just said? I move we waive.
There's a motion to waive the second reading of the revised policy as requested. Is that your motion?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, by
Getting a little testy.
Who was the
Frank,
second?
Mr. Hester. Okay, we have a motion to waive the second reading of the revised policy 7510, employee leaves and absences as requested. Any discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of waiving the second reading of the revised policy as requested, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, for the motion, it's the,
I move we approve the revisions of policy 7510, employee leaves and absences as presented.
is there a second? Second by Ms. Balance. Have a motion and a second to implement policy 7510, employee leaves and absences as requested. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a quick question about that. How would you handle if, let's say, an employee had a tragic accident where a family member was on his deathbed, and they have to take leave for 2-3 weeks, but they can't give you a 30 days notice? So how would that be handled?
So, Mr. Woody, that would probably it would fall under Family Medical Leave Act. An emergency leave, that's certainly there. I know I've talked with the policy committee when we met to discuss this policy revision to explain that there has been no staff member denied a leave without pay since this policy has been implemented. It is leveled up to me, and we talk individually to the staff member so that we can kind of verify what kind of leave would be applied. So in an emergency situation, and the verbiage in that policy actually says that, that the 30 days would be preferred if possible. Emergencies happen.
Any
Thank
further
you.
discussion on that? If no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, where are we at now? Our meeting is over? Anybody want to stay a little longer?
No, I want to say one thing real quick. I just want to do a quick shout out to my husband who's being recognized this evening. I was unfortunately not able to come for 25 years of service to Hatteras Village Fire Department. And I'm so proud of him. And so motion to adjourn.
Second? I get to bang the gavel, hold on.
Yeah.
You got to call for a vote to adjourn.
Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? You're crazy. Go home.